And we are live. Here we go. I'm here with some special guests this week. We got B. Russell and Darth Vader. All right, we are officially live. Everything's working. Welcome to Star Wars Club. When Jenny hopped on our chat today, she was wearing this mask, and it really made me laugh. Well, how's everyone doing out there? Jenny, how you doing today?
I'm good. I am. Oh, yeah. I'm so excited. There's it's so exciting in Star Wars. It's so exciting.
There's so much to talk about today. How about you, B? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to dive in and talk about so many different things.
I know
everything's coming together, you guys.
There's so much.
It's all happening.
There's so much to talk about. We got to talk about the episode first, but then we also realized that the three of us have all finally finished watching Clone Wars and Rebels. So later on in the stream today, we got to talk about that a little bit because there's some really good stuff to talk about that relates directly to this episode. Like we got to talk about Thrawn. We've got to talk about Ezra Bridger. We'll get there. So much to talk about. What's up, Matt and Sam in the chat? Sam says best episode of the season by far. Well, let's get into it. So let's talk about Ahsoka first, because this is the live action debut of Ahsoka Tano. Who wants to kick us off? What do you guys think of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka?
Man, I'll let you go B first.
Great, thanks. Because I'm all like great. Like you said, I can be articulate. I mean, you guys have heard me say this before, but I feel like they knew that they're giving us gold. I felt like they just immediately started off with just the way that she was introduced and seeing the lightsaber in the darkness and then seeing pieces of her as she's fighting. I was just like, ah! Like I just started to scream at the TV like a crazy person. And I feel like I've said this before, but I was just overjoyed. And I just felt like the entire episode, Rosario Dawson just brought a groundedness that I feel like I didn't realize I was craving. Like it was, and I think it's just because I just love when the lore and all the storytelling, all of the pieces start to fall into place. Like all the hours I've spent reading and watching content, it's like, oh my God, it's like it all was worth it. And it's just like this ultimate joy. It's just like all the time I invested in these characters and learning about them and their history and just loving this story. It felt like it brought some groundedness to it, because even though The Mandalorian is such a great spinoff, of the larger Star Wars universe, and we're getting to see kind of a different character's perspective of what's going on in this universe, after Return of the Jedi, it's great to kind of figure out where, this great addition to the canon. But when you bring in characters and storylines that link in the larger story, I feel like, I don't even know how to say it. It just makes it magical. And I thought Rosario Dawson was just so grounded. And I felt like she really respected the role. I completely believed her the entire time. And she knew who she was. She was confident. The makeup was amazing. The only thing, I'll get it out the way now, that was a little bit jarring for me, I guess, or alarming, was that her head tails and her her montrals were not as high up, because that species, as they age, they get taller and pointier. So the fact that they weren't straight up on her head and they were kind of leaned backwards, I was like, that doesn't look right. Like it kind of looks like the young Ahsoka Tano that we meet in Clone Wars. But I was like, oh, that's it. That was just a tiny little critique. But I've already read some things on the internet that apparently they did that for to make it easier for fight scenes and things. I was like, all right, whatever. Still, it's amazing. But it was just, I was expecting, because she's older, for it to be really tall.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh, it's not. But it's like, okay, whatever. I'm still in love with this entire thing. All right, whatever. Just I'm gonna forget it. But I felt like there was some weight. I could feel the change in the tension, in it, just the electricity of every scene. Everything just felt so grounded and so intentional. And Mando kind of is like, I'm on this quest to deliver this baby to a Jedi. I don't really know what to expect. But it's like, oh, you about to find out, Mando. You about to find out. You about to learn some things. And I don't want to get into too many things. I want to hear what else you'll have to say. But that was like my first, like the minute the episode started, I was just like so just full of joy, full of excitement. Like I fell in love with her portrayal of Ahsoka Tano immediately, and I could see the weight of all that character's experience in her eyes. Like I feel like for me, who's also an actor, I watch an actor's eyes and I can see what's the work that you've done for this moment. Like what I feel like a good actor, they carry the entire backstory of that character in the way that their eyes are, the way that they act with their eyes. So
yeah, that's cool.
It was just so, every time he asked her a question, you could see the weight of everything she's experienced every time. She didn't rush into her, she didn't just respond. She took a breath, she took a moment. It was just like, ooh, she's living. She's living. Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, somebody else talk.
Yeah, Sam says in the chat, Ahsoka's character didn't feel like a separate character from the animated version, like live action adaptations do sometimes. It really felt like Ahsoka. The line about what fear can do to the best Jedi really hit me. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, obviously referencing... Hello? Are you trying to come in and say hi?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt.
Obviously referencing Anakin Skywalker. That was really powerful. Jenny, what about you? What did you think of Ahsoka's debut? Before you start, hold on. Andy's here. She's going to hop in and say hi. Let's get her some headphones.
Hey!
Hi, Andy.
Andy!
Should I come into the stream?
Sure, yeah. Come say hi.
Whoa.
Andy's just fingers.
That's it. That's all I'm made of. Okay, hold on. Let me put these on.
Yeah.
Hello!
Hi.
There they are. Hello!
Yeah. Since Andy's in an uncomfortable position here, Andy, what did you think of this new episode?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I didn't have any previous knowledge about Ahsoka. See, obviously. But I knew that you had been watching Rebels, and you had some knowledge. Peripherally, I knew about her, but I didn't have any attachment to how her character should be portrayed.
Yeah.
Which I know Jesse was mentioning was sort of a common feeling that or you were saying that's how you felt a little bit, that it was like right in some aspects, but based on where her timeline is.
I haven't talked about my feelings yet.
Oh, spoiler. I'm so sorry.
Well, one of the things we talked about is her head tails, or Leku, right? They're called Leku. How they were like supposed to grow as they get older, but hers were short. We've talked about that a little bit. I
felt in general that detail was very clearly made out of foam.
Yeah, her head tails had crinkles in them.
The way the foam crinkles when it's bent.
And Andy, having no knowledge of the character, was asking me, he's like, is that a headdress, or is that like part of her body?
Right. I thought it was like something that she put over her hair to like as a head dressing. But I didn't realize it is part of her body, right?
Yes.
Yeah, to me it didn't look like an extension of her body. But and, makeup and costumes have been so good on this show, and their prosthetics and everything have been so good. So, I don't know if maybe it was just sort of their vision, or I don't know. It's tough too, because it's not like based on a certain animal or something, it's.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello. But I really thought she was cool. I really liked her performance. I loved her connection to Grogu, and learning more about this creature that we've been on the journey with for so long. The fact that we didn't even know his name wasn't something I fully internalized until this episode. It's like, oh, right, his name is not Baby Yoda.
Always Baby Yoda, I think. I'll still default to calling him that for a while. It's going to take a while to get used to the name.
For sure.
Yes, absolutely. It's true. It's funny. This is a terrible reference, and I don't think very many people will. Maybe this crowd doesn't have a lot of crossover with that, but in Sex and the City, they wait to Mr. Big. They like wait to say his real name until the last episode,
Right.
and then in the movie, they like she like walks into her apartment. And she's like John, and it's like, oh, what? That's not his name.
Yeah, it turns out Mr. Big's real name was actually Grogu.
Yeah, that's okay. It says Grogu is also like older than Mando.
Yeah, he's like 50.
It's funny, but it's like dog years, you know? It's like in the reverse, sort of.
Yeah, it was interesting to see like what does Grogu know and understand, and it's a lot more than we would assume, which I thought was really cool. I mean, finally having a character who can communicate with Grogu and having it be Ahsoka on top of that was really, really rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that was some of my favorite parts of it were their conversations between the two of them, and her just kind of like, I don't know, it was almost kind of slow and quiet, and her just kind of very like subtle like little smiles and looks, and this like just kind of like compassion. Like I agree with like Rosario Dawson, I just loved her in this, and I don't know, like the tendrils didn't bother me, even though I was expecting them to be bigger, but to me, like I accept, like, if they're trying to stick with practical effects in this show and limit the like, I just couldn't imagine her with these like long things just like flipping around as she's like doing all these acrobatics, like without it looking awkward or like hitting her in the face or something.
Yeah,
like
totally.
So I forgave that like really pretty easily, just because like, yeah, logistically, I felt that was a smart move. Even if I know there were other, like, I think I sent Jesse a TikTok video. There were quite a few fans that were kind of mad about that. Like, it's supposed to be like this and this. But yeah, it would just be tricky, like, filming wise.
Yeah.
So,
Although we have seen a Jedi with long Leku in, I think her name is Shakti in episode 3, especially in deleted scenes. She had a whole arc in the deleted scenes that didn't really show up on film. And she had like the full adult Leku, and it was a practical effect. Also, what's up? Andrew Creech is in the chat. What's up, my friend? There was a moment when Ahsoka and Grogu silently talked about the death of Yoda. I totally saw that. Yeah. We have a lot to talk about with that. We definitely do. But yeah, we got to hear more about what Jenny thinks of Ahsoka, because we interrupted her.
Oh yeah, I loved. You know, because I think we were saying last week, we kind of thought like they'd probably introduce her like the end of an episode, and you would just like see her and then have to wait another week. So I kind of liked that they almost kind of threw you off, and they're like, "We know what you're here for. We know what you want. Here she is."
Yeah,
like,
instantly.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, that just felt like, again, like the thing I love about Dave Filoni and all the creators of the show, like they seem to know us, like they are us. They're like, we know what she's here. There she is. And yeah, that scene was gorgeous. I love the whole backdrop planet that she's on, this like scorched, burned to the ground, I felt was just such a cool physical represent, maybe like where she's at, you know, after seeing everything burn to the ground, and then she's this like light, like flipping around, and I was trying to think, so like how old would she be, or like, well, I couldn't remember. So obviously the Clone Wars are at least 40 years
she's like
prior. I mean, obviously if Grogu is 50 years old.
I read an article, and I think it said that she was like 55. It was either 45 or 55, and now I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just
well, we won't be able to hear you from over there, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
We don't have a good way for two people to be in this room.
It's just so.
Yeah, we're actually moving, and we're gonna have a easier way to have more than one person on stream.
But I totally agree with everything you just said. And I mean, I think that the fight scenes were really amazing. I really liked the storyline between her and the magistrate, because I feel like we see that storyline with two men quite often. And it was really cool to see it with two women and two women of color. Like, I just really, and they just like, they both, I was like, I didn't even think about it, but when the two women were facing off, I was like, we never see this. And they both looked like such, you know, I mean, they had such intensity in their eyes and their movements. I know there maybe was some well, Jesse, you mentioned there's maybe some body doubling.
Yeah.
But either way,
like
the portrayal, you're just like, these two characters are, they're just everything I want in this moment, you know?
What's up, Keenan? Keenan says Kill Bill vibes. Yeah. Sam says contrasted by the almost comedic standoff with their male counterparts, which is a really good point. And I loved that too. I mean, that was Michael Biehn.
That was
I didn't even pick that up until I watched the credits. I was like, wait, Michael Biehn was in this episode? Because I haven't seen him in anything in so long. But I mean, that's like Kyle Reese from The Terminator. And he was awesome in this episode. He had such like an interesting presence and like weird gravitas, but seemed like dangerous. He really just embodied that character so well. That was awesome.
Yeah, I felt like there was something, almost like familiar, or I don't know, like I felt like I knew him. I was very comfortable with him on screen. Like he was just, for such a short, like pretty much cameo, I guess, almost like it was. I loved it. That was one of my favorite scenes, him, that like cowboy showdown with Mando, and was just, like commenting on what's going on the other side of like, we'll see who wins. Sounds like you won. So good. So good.
It definitely like leaned into the Western vibes. Yeah. Like when Ahsoka got over the door and then like was facing off with the magistrate and all of the droids and then that one dude. It was just the wind blowing her outfit and like the sand going everywhere. I rewatched this episode maybe 3 times now. I watch it with my mother, and she's like, "We just need a tumbleweed to go by." She's like, "That's the only thing missing from this thing."
Yes,
like, totally.
Yeah. Oh, Andrew makes a really good point. Also, guys, if you don't know Papa Don't Preach, he's a great dude, a great performer. He makes awesome stuff on his YouTube channel. Click over to his channel, check him out. Also on TikTok too. Okay, he says Michael Biehn also played the antagonist to Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday in Tombstone. There was a clear Tombstone showdown reference in the latest episode, which I haven't seen Tombstone, but I saw a clip of this online, which was super, super cool. I mean, you can tell that the people making this show are just like film nerds and Star Wars nerds, and they're just nerding out all over themselves. Sam says there were so many small scenes that really brought this scene together. Like when that one villager was about to step in to try and stop the execution before Mando showed up. That villager who became the magistrate at the end of the episode, that actor did an incredible job because he had almost no dialogue, but you got his story. It's like he's this guy who's trying to save all of his villagers, and then he is like a respected person in the community, maybe even the magistrate before this evil Elsbeth woman showed up. And then he like reclaims his rightful place because of, Mando and Ahsoka's intervention. And that was such a great little side plot. And that actor just sold it with his performance. It was super cool. Jenny, have you told us everything you wanted to say about your reaction to Ahsoka? Because I got so much to say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could watch for like 20 more minutes, but no, you go.
Okay. So I just started watching Rebels like last year when we started our Star Wars Club on the Space Nerds podcast. Before it moved to this format, we were actually watching through Rebels together. I just finished Rebels this week. So I have all of this like fresh in my mind. And then also I just watched the final season of the Clone Wars like a week or two ago. And so my hardcore love of Ahsoka really started very recently, because when I first started watching the Clone Wars, I'm like, this girl is annoying and her tube top looks stupid. And then she becomes like this fully fleshed out character with a cool outfit, and she's like a badass Jedi. And it just happens slowly that you really start to love Ahsoka. And I think that's kind of the way that she was taken by the fandom at large as well, is that at first everyone's like, oh my God, this character is really annoying. But like 3 or 4 seasons in, everyone just loves her. And then by the end of the Clone Wars, she's just one of the best characters that Star Wars has ever produced. And seeing what she does in Rebels is amazing, and the way she grows and matures. And also, I mean, all this idea that like she has this owl that maybe is representative of the spirit of the daughter from that episode in season 3, that maybe she took in some of this Force spirit. That's a whole thing we can talk about later. So she's just like so powerful and so cool. But what I love about her the most is her empathy and her compassion, and the fact that she just cares and loves about everyone. And I don't feel like that came through in her live action debut. So there was a little bit of wanting from my perspective of not seeing the thing that I loved the most about Ahsoka in this episode. Like there's moments when she's interacting with Baby Yoda when you see it, but the first time you're introduced to her, she is just murdering people, just like slicing through people. And it's the whole episode is kind of cold and dark and kind of emotionless in a lot of ways. And for me, Ahsoka is just like this bouncing, joyous ball of energy. And yeah, she's like been through some really horrible stuff, and it kind of darkens her a little bit. But when we see her in Rebels, she's been through that stuff already, and she still has a lot of this like joy and presence and love for life that I don't feel like we saw in this episode. And to me, that doesn't mean that this was a bad interpretation. It just means that I want to see the joyous Ahsoka in the live action version, and it wasn't there in this episode. So this was like scratching the itch a little bit of wanting a live action Ahsoka, but feeling like it's barely scratching the surface of what they could do with this character. And I'm just feeling like they're setting the stage for what they're going to do with her later. And I trust them because I trust Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau to make good choices for Star Wars. But this was mostly, for me, this was a little bit less of the exciting thing that it was for other people, I think, because it didn't quite represent the Ahsoka that I love the most. And I was a little distracted by, I felt like there was a stunt double who did her lightsaber stuff, and then Rosario Dawson doing the acting, performing stuff and speaking stuff. And to me, there was quite a bit of difference between those two performers. For me, I'm pretty sure that I saw moments where there was like digital face replacements, where they were putting Rosario's face onto the stunt double's face so that it wouldn't look like the stunt double. And that effect was a little jarring to me. I might be wrong about that. That's just what it looked like to me. I felt like there was a disconnect between Ahsoka in motion and Ahsoka standing still. And that was a little distracting to me. And then also, like, I just want Ahsoka to stand there with like one hand on her hip, the way she always does, with like that sassy attitude, you know? And then when she's standing still, she's just like very boxy, very still. So there was something in the physical performance that I was missing. But I recognize that I'm a stick in the mud. I'm, you know, the only one who seems to be feeling this way. I've been like down the rabbit hole a little online and seen a couple of people talking about things that feel similar to what I was feeling. So while I loved this episode and I was so excited by it, it definitely wasn't at the top of my list for the season. I think my top episode of the season is still the premiere. That fight with the Krayt Dragon was just like, you know, 12-year-old me watching Star Wars for the first time being like, what's a Krayt Dragon? I know now, you know? Like, so I don't know. But I want to be talked out of it if you guys have like ways to talk me out of feeling not quite as satisfied.
Wow. I mean, it's interesting because we're talking about an actor physicalizing a role for themselves while also honoring a character that's only really been portrayed in cartoon.
Right. Which is so tough.
Novel. So, you know what I'm saying? So I think there's I feel like Rosario Dawson brings something that is just that only she bring that obviously won't translate the same, and at least in the physicality. For me, I did not notice the change as far as stunt double her. I thought it was pretty seamless, but I mean, I've watched it 3 times now, but that wasn't so jarring to me. I actually would love to see if they continue to do behind the scenes, like the docuseries that they started for season 1. I wonder if they'll continue that for season 2. I'm interested to see or know more about that.
Yeah, I
know
love
she
that.
She is a very physical actor. I know that she is able to do some things, but I'm curious about what was her and what wasn't her. And I feel like we meet her in a very specific timeline,
right,
as far as what's already happened. Like, we have to assume that everything in Rebels has already happened, that Ezra has already left, and Thrawn she doesn't know where Thrawn is still.
Right.
And she probably doesn't know where Ezra is either. So there's a lot of gap in as far as what we know about her experience since the end of Rebels. And she has experience. I think there is a lot to be said about the fact that war is ugly and that it does change people.
Yeah.
You know, and she has experienced a lot at this point. And we also, I agree with you that her introduction was very harsh and dark. We also caught her in the midst of a conflict. We don't know how it began. It could have began a little bit more peaceful. She could have given them some more chances. Yeah. And this is the final straw because everybody has their breaking point. Yeah. I mean, I love that moment where she's like, you have one day to decide. Because the thing is, like, I totally agree with you, Jesse, that there is this like buoyancy, this like youthful, I don't know how her species ages, but there's a hope there's a hope-filled kind of space that she always occupies.
Yes.
And you see that through Rebels as well, where she's always an encouragement to Ezra specifically. She's always offering that perspective of, this is bad, but then let's look at the bright side, I guess, for just to simplify it. Like, she's always looking at she's solution oriented, and she is a positive thinking person. However, this is war, and she has very strong morals, and we see this through all of Clone Wars and Rebels, where if there is oppression happening, she feels obligated to do something about it.
Right.
Like, her empathy is massive. So the fact that she knows Elsbeth, she knows what she's done. She was able to basically tell us, like, she lost everything, and therefore has made everybody else pay for what she's lost. She joined the Empire and basically just pillaged worlds and has left, as we can see, just nothing in her wake. Like, the Earth, the planet itself, just looks like it's dying. I just watched the episodes. Sorry to interrupt, but I just watched the episode of Rebels where they were strip mining Lothal to build the Death Star, and like doing the same thing where they were like burning down the planet just for the raw resources. And this tied directly into that, and I loved that. I thought that was super cool to see that happening on another planet. Also, we have to say hi to Sean. What's up, Sean? I already watched the episode 6 times. I've done 2. B's done 3. You've doubled the best of us, sir. Sam says, I interpreted this as taking place really soon before the last scene in Rebels with her and Sabine. Lothcat, it was the Lothcat in this episode. I love that. So I'm pretty sure that this is after that, because I think that last scene in Rebels is right after the Battle of Endor, and this is like 5 or 10 years after the fall of the Empire. Yeah. So I think that this is a few years after that.
5 or 7. 5 years or 7 years. So yeah, I mean, there's been a bit of time in between. So I kind of took, I did notice she didn't feel quite as the animated version of Ahsoka. Like, I agree, I totally get where you're coming from, Jesse. Like, I saw some of that. I guess, I just kind of the same as B though. Like, I just saw it as well, I'm so excited to know what's made her this way. Like, I think she's seen a lot, and there has been, even when we saw her in Rebels, there, like you said, there's probably been at least 5 years since. So I'm like, what happened to her? Like, I don't know. I felt like we got hints of it. Like, she would kind of, even my dad, would, who's not seen any of the animated shows, pointed out her smiles, that she just has this little and even in unexpected spots. Exactly. I think it's even when he gets her in the rope, she does this little, she looks up and sees a tree and just has this little smile. And I was like, there she is. Like, I think it's still there. She's been through some shit. She's maybe a little distrust or little less trusting, she's feeling things out. She felt very internal, she was, you mentioned, her eyes and stuff, there was a lot of stuff going on, but she's processing things. She's trying to decide what to communicate, what to say to Mando, this person, the Mandalorians have a whole history, so she's just processing. And I mean, yes, she's murdering a bunch of people when we see her, but she's still, it still felt on brand for her, protecting
her brand is murder.
No, I mean, Jenny, there's so. Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you brought up that moment, because I felt like when we see her in the forest with Mando and Grogu, there's those moments where she has that smirk or that smile before she speaks, and she's playful with Mando, because it can be pretty dense sometimes, and I think she made fun of him a couple times. There was, I think, what was she's she's like
Grogu, his name's Grogu.
Yeah.
And she just this little murky looks. I loved it. It was a more subdued, but again, it's just she's grown up. She's older. We know her mostly as, a teenager, and so yeah, I just loved her, and I do hope. I think maybe we'll get more and more of that character that we know. They were just kind of setting up, I don't know, and again, I keep going back to the setting, because you're right, the whole episode is so dark and dreary, and I think that was obviously intentional, so maybe that is mimicking again whatever she's been through, whatever, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I'm so excited to find out.
When she first encounters Mando, the first thing she does is try to chop his hand off, because he blocks with his arm, and her lightsabers hit his his Beskar right here, and I was surprised by that. I was like, I'm surprised she didn't try to figure out who he was before trying to kill him, or at least chop his hands off. Like that kind of
thing that he's a Mandalorian, like with her, experience with.
Yeah, totally. Hey, what's up, Adam? Oh no, you didn't get a notification. I'm sorry to hear that. YouTube sometimes, but welcome. We're glad to see you. We've just been talking about Ahsoka the entire time so far. Yeah, but I was surprised by that. I mean, it was a cool moment and a cool setup for later on to find out that Beskar can stand up to a lightsaber, which is awesome. Like, I love that as a detail, and seeing that fight with the Beskar spear later on was super cool.
That was amazing.
Yeah, but Ahsoka, I feel like, is someone who would make sure that the person she's fighting is a villain before trying to chop their hands off.
Yeah,
really good point.
Yes, someone saying?
I wanted to hop in here, and I am gonna go, but I really enjoyed this conversation so much, and I really, it's really cool to be able to do this. I feel like even in quarantine, it's like nice to watch something and then talk with friends about it and hear other people's thoughts on it as it's coming out. And yeah, you guys are awesome, and thanks for letting me sit in for a little bit.
Yeah, anytime, of course.
Good to see you all. Have a great stream.
Bye, Andy.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. That was such a great fight. Like, I think the point of that was not that, she's cutting. It's just to show off that new thing that we know that Beskar.
I think you're right.
Is lightsaber. What's the word? Deterrent? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm thinking of.
I just always think of everything from the point of view of.
Really good point, though, Jason.
It was a good fight. I mean, but I'm always thinking of everything from the point of view of the characters and not from the audience. Yeah. Like, I want to enjoy it from the point of view of the audience, but I want it to be authentic to the characters at all times. And that was just just seeing her just murder, try to chop off Mando's hand. And that's like the first introduction we get of her. As awesome as all those fights were, and as badass as it all was, and as much as I enjoyed watching it, there wasn't enough of her character in this episode to know why she's doing all that. And it's not necessarily bad. They gave themselves a lot of room to grow. And there's all these rumors floating around that they might do an Ahsoka spin-off show, and that's what I want so badly. But they're giving themselves a lot of room to grow. It's like, why is Ahsoka on this planet? Why is she acting this way? Like, why is she kind of surrounded by darkness in a way we're not used to seeing her? There's so much story that they could tell there that they hopefully will get to. We know that Dave Filoni does not drop story threads. Even if he ends something like the end of Rebels has open story threads, he knows that, and he's gonna do something about that in the future. And we got a hint of that in this episode with that Thrawn name drop. So, yeah.
I screamed.
I did too.
Jenny. I was like, so excited.
I didn't hear anything happen after they said Thrawn. Like, I literally, I don't even know what's happening anymore. I was in a different world the last 10 minutes of the episode. And I was just like, I told you, I knew it. I was like a little kid. I ran upstairs and got all my books. And I was like showing my parents because they were just like, what's wrong? What's happening? What's going on? What's going on? And I was like, okay, here's my books. Like, this is and I was like, trying, because Biehn and I were talking about this 2 weeks ago, remember? And I said, I have faith. I was like, he's not gone. We did not see him die. If Maul can come back, Thrawn can come back. It looked bad for him. Oh my God. I wanted to see this character on live screens for 20 years.
I know, it's nuts. Yeah, so let's do...
It's just like...
Oh, so go ahead, B.
No, it made me think, because I feel like Dave Filoni holds all the cards. Like, he has had his hand in Clone Wars and Rebels and now this. And because he's such an expert in the canon, I just am amazed at how much information he holds in his mind. It's like he has so many options. You know what I mean? Because of what's considered canon now. And the minute the word Thrawn came out of her mouth, I was like, okay, so you're going to make some choices, sir. Okay, I'm expecting some choices, because that character has so much history in I think for Star Wars fans, we, as far as how he's been introduced to us, either through books, really only through books, and then through Rebels. So I feel like there's just so much that character can offer the live action canon that it just very exciting. It's like, what? And then for those of us watching Rebels, we don't, him and Ezra, their fate is linked. Ezra Bridger and his fate are linked. So to find out what happened after they left, they went into hyperspace via Purgle.
I love it so much.
What happened?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm losing my
breathe. Like, that ship is totally exposed. I'm like, can you breathe? Like, while you're going to, I was just like, how do you survive that? Like,
because the windows were cracked open. But if they jump from hyperspace from one atmosphere to another, who knows? Although I assume that hyperspace has no atmosphere. But Ezra has the Force, so he just like pulled them into another room. I don't know. We'll see it someday. I think that we're going to see it. I think that this means that we will see that someday. And there's all these rumors floating around now that they're going to make like a show about the Rebels characters, and like go into this whole backstory with Ezra. But to me, I feel like what makes the most sense is to do an Ahsoka show and have it be about that, and bring in Sabine and bring in Hera and Zeb and Chopper. Oh my God, Chopper might be my favorite droid. Okay, we have so much to talk about. I want to check in with chat real quick.
Great.
Sam says the ringing of Beskar against lightsaber reminded me of and contrasted with the horrible sound of lightsabers sliding against each other we heard in Dooku's execution. That was a really interesting comment. And Adam says, I think she's just darkened as a character in the years since we've seen her last, referencing Ahsoka. I agree with you, and that's why I just want more. I want to see more. Like, I feel like this is just scratching the surface. What's up, Exo? Good to see you. And Adam pointed out I have a new gaming channel. We'd love to see you. I'm actually going to try to stream some Mario Maker tomorrow. We'd love to see you there. Good to see you again. Keenan says, big fan of this planet setting, Calodan, and spooky megafauna. Reminded me of Dagobah or Felucia, especially during the Grogu training attempts. More large critters and training scenes, please. Okay, so while we're talking about Thrawn, for anyone who's unfamiliar with Thrawn, I just really want to talk about this for a second, because this is like, I mean, again, teenage Jessie just like squealing because this is so exciting. I think Jenny's grabbing her books. Yep. Okay, so way back in the day, after Return of the Jedi came out, there was only 3 Star Wars movies. There was no TV shows, no cartoons, nothing. There was just 3 movies, and that was it. And that's all we had for a long time.
We had it.
Yes, that's the trilogy. Yes. Okay, so that trilogy of books was the first like official continuation of canon. There had been one book written before that, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, that wasn't very good. I don't recommend it. It came out as like
Empire, I think, was written on the same too.
Yeah, so Splinter of the Mind's Eye was like a sequel to Empire Strikes Back before Empire Strikes Back came out, and it wasn't very good, and people don't really think about it much anyway. But then the Thrawn came out when there was this like this need for more Star Wars. It's like, what happens after Return of the Jedi? That's a question that people had for a really long time. And then there was this whole continuity of books that were like, supposedly official canon for years, that all started with this Thrawn trilogy of books that was all about Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's like...
1991.
What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just 1991.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and then Jedi came out in, 83, I think. So, for like a long time, there was no continuation of Star Wars whatsoever. But then what really kicked off the whole expanded universe of novels was Timothy Zahn's trilogy of Thrawn stories. So Thrawn was this Grand Admiral who was out on the outer reaches of space during the events of Return of the Jedi, but he was, one of Emperor Palpatine's high-ranking commanders or Grand Admirals, and he is supposedly the most brilliant tactical mind in the Empire besides Emperor Palpatine. And he comes back to the main galaxy and emerges as this threat to the New Republic as they're trying to build this New Republic, basically. And he was like so many people's favorite character, like new favorite villain, someone that we only saw in books. And he existed in books for decades. And then he finally showed up in Rebels. All of those books were deemed to not be canon anymore when Disney bought Star Wars. But then they brought Thrawn into Rebels. So it's like I mean, one of the things that people were super upset about when that old canon went away was that Thrawn was no longer canon. But then Dave Filoni grabbed him from this Legends canon and brought him into the new real canon, and made him an official character. And they did a really great job with Thrawn in Rebels. At first, I was like, his voice is a little mumbly, he's a little hard to understand. But now I'm like, if anyone else ever plays that character, I'll be mad. I just now hear his voice as Thrawn, you know? And they brought in the fact that Thrawn would collect the artwork of his enemies to try to understand them. And it was just great. It's such a cool, interesting character. And the guy who played him plays the Russian president on House of Cards. And he looks the part. So you paint him blue, and he's perfect. So, I mean, now the doors are open. We've name dropped Thrawn on screen in live action. The doors are open to bring this character to live action, which is insane. I mean, if you'd told me as a kid that someday there would be a live action Thrawn, I would have said, goddamn right, there better be, because we really need that. And the fact that is probably going to happen. I don't see a future in which they don't do that. You know, that would be insane to never bring Thrawn into live action. Yeah.
There's no way they drop that and then are not going to do anything without it. But I was going to say too, also in Rebels, and this actually took me a second to catch. There's a couple side of his. There's other characters too. His assassin, that alien. I always
Rook.
forget how to pronounce it. Rook. Yeah.
Oh, he was played by Warwick Davis, who played Wicket the Ewok.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Rook was amazing. I loved that character.
It took me a second to realize, when I saw him in Rebels, and I was like, oh my god. And then they also mention...
Wait, is Rook from the books? Because I don't remember that. I haven't read them in forever.
So in these books, he talks about this gray, slinky creature with needle point teeth, and it's this ruthless assassin. And yeah, so he's his little sidekick. And then they also mention, I can't remember if they just mentioned or if he's actually in it, but Captain Pelion, who is the first character you actually hear speak. A lot of the books are actually from his point of view, because he reports to Grand Admiral Thrawn. And he's mentioned in Rebels too. So there's actually three characters.
I didn't even pick that up.
That have been name drop, at least in Rebels. So I assume, especially Rook, will be live action too. And yeah, I think that the guy.
Yeah, what? I mean, but B, how many people have we seen get blown up that are still alive? You never know. Darth Maul got chopped in half and fell off a building, and he's fine.
You know? Also, I don't think Rook did die. I think I gotta watch. I started watching the final episode of Rebels again. I want to watch the whole thing again because I thought I noticed he had another one of those deaths, he falls off a cliff or something.
Right.
Okay, so he's coming back. We didn't.
Right.
I mean, I just watched it.
Yeah. Oh, really? So I might be wrong about that.
He almost dies a few times in Rebels, where he does fall, but the way that how his speed, he's able to clamp onto the side of the cliff and not, fall to his doom. But he has a fight with Zeb in the Imperial Dome that they steal, that they infiltrate, and they activate the ship, and there's these electric currents that are coming to where he is, and Zeb has trapped him in one.
Yeah.
And he basically fries him, and he takes his comm to Thrawn, and Zeb's yeah, he'll get back to you. He's actually, he won't. He won't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll bet you he shows up in a Darth Vader suit, Darth Vader got fried pretty bad too, so who knows?
That's true.
Yeah, but he was a really cool character. Thrawn has this sense of danger around him, and I love that even his assassin Rook has this feeling of danger around him as well. But Adam says in the chat, I think Rebels Thrawn was slightly nerfed, and totally. I mean, it's a cartoon. Rebels is slightly nerfed in general. They, the level of intensity I think can't be as high. But they still manage to hit emotional highs that are on par with the movies. Rebels is amazing. We're going to talk about it a little later because I just finished it. And we've been dying to talk about it for a while. Adam also recommends Ascendancy series book 1, which is pretty interesting, which I'm curious about the new book canon. I haven't really dived into it. I read Catalyst and I thought it was terrible. I'm like, I'm not interested in the rest of this canon if this is how bad this book is going to be. I
remember you told me that, and I was so bummed.
Yeah,
that one was, because that one tied into
Rogue One.
Rogue One, right? Catalyst was about a villain in that.
It was it was like the backstory for Galen Erso and a little bit of Krennic, Director Krennic as well.
Right, Krennic.
Sam says Darth Vader got grilled more than fried. Yeah, he was on like a nice charcoal bed. Sam also says, I realize if Grogu is 50, that means he probably knew what he was doing with the eggs. That's a good point. Yeah. Grogu knows more than he's letting on.
I think the writers responded to that, or the writers or somebody, I think they did. Their whole idea is I don't think they realized that people were going to be creeped out about it, because someone from the show said something. They're like, they're unfertilized eggs. Like, yeah, it's like eating a chicken egg. Like, I think they were just thinking it was funny and that people weren't going to.
But this is what we talked about, like, eating chicken eggs is all well and good unless it's the last chicken eggs ever. Yeah. Oh, Adam said this earlier, exactly, and I forgot to mention it. Adam says that he lives near Timothy Zahn. He actually met him once, and he was super cool and super smart, which is awesome. What? Yeah, now we're all jealous.
Oh, I would fangirl out meeting Timothy Zahn. I'm scared that I would embarrass myself.
Yeah, he saved Star Wars. Like, Star Wars was just this awesome movie trilogy that would have gone away forever had it not been for the expanded universe. Yeah. Which like really blossomed, and then they started like reselling all these action figures. And then they made like Shadows of the Empire, where they made, you know, like video games and books and action figures all about, you know, stuff that never even happened on screen in the original movies, which is incredible. Like, remember Shizor? Remember, we're all like, how do you say this name?
Oh, I know. That's like I think more than any, because I remember the books were kind of hit or miss. Like, there were a lot of them that I loved, and then there were a few that I just like hated, or I didn't even finish, because I was like, this just doesn't sound like Star Wars. This doesn't sound like the dialogue they would say. And Timothy Zahn just had it down. Like, I read these, and for a long time, like this was, as the story in this, the characters that Mara Jade, I was obsessed with for a while, are the same in my mind as like the original trilogy. I was I've read this 3 times, each 3 of these books. I want to read it again. I haven't read them in a while, but I was obsessed with this trilogy on the same, because again, it was all we had, but still, it's so good.
B and I just had the same reaction to you mentioning Mara Jade. No. I know we're going to say the same thing. Go for it, B.
I'll let you talk about Mara Jade, but I just wanted to co-sign on one thing that Jenny said. I feel like with the legend canon, like, there's, as far as it being hit or miss, I feel like I did have favorite authors.
Right.
And I feel like, Timothy Zahn is definitely the best of all of the authors that have contributed to the canon. And I love that he's still contributing in the new canon too. And I was going to ask Jenny if, because I believe you're reading the new Ascendancy Thrawn book as well, because that's on my list. I've been buying new canon books, because I do want to know, like, okay, what are we saying is canon now? Because it can show up in Mandalorian. It could show up. You know, I'm hoping it will, because I'm like, if I'm going to invest all this time in these new canon books, like, I would love to see some of that on the screen. So that was what I was going to ask you, is what you think of the new Thrawn books. But go ahead, and before we jump into that, I guess, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, like, where is Mara Jade? You know, like, if we're doing all this stuff with Thrawn, the biggest, most popular character from the expanded universe is Mara Jade. Full stop. Hands down. No question. And they got to bring her in. You know, we need Mara Jade. Like, that's a character that we have to see on screen. And I think that they must know that. Dave Filoni is obviously a bigger nerd than any of us combined. He's read all these books. He's familiar with Mara Jade. Mara Jade and Thrawn debuted in the same book together. So we know that they have a working relationship with the author, Timothy Zahn. We know that they're bringing stuff in to canon that he wrote. And he wrote Mara Jade. It's got to happen someday, but, like, where is she? You know, I mean, I'm not greedy or anything. We're getting Thrawn. You know, I'm not greedy. I got patience. It's just, I hope that's on someone's list. someone's list somewhere, please tell me that Mara Jade is being talked about.
I got paid.
I'm sure, like, she has to be. There's this, I have so much faith in Dave Filoni. Again, like, he's one of us. Like, he is us. Yeah, she's gotta be on the radar. I mean, the way this series is going, I wouldn't be surprised if they name drop her somehow. And like, but yeah, just the Thrawn book that I'm reading right now, I am really loving it. So far, it's very self-contained. Like, it hasn't connected to the outer. At least I'm about halfway through at this point. Like, they're in their own, like, the Ascendancy, this like chaotic world that's kind of on the outer rims or something. But I did get a spoiler online. I heard somehow that there is a point where it does start connecting to the characters. It's cool. But I love it. It's like an origin story. It goes to when he's like in school and like being chosen for like, I'm like imagining like carrying his books down the hall and stuff. But it's really interesting learning his background. And because in the book you're reading about him, I mean, he's not a villain. You're reading, he's the protagonist in the book, which is kind of interesting, and you just get more on his background. And he said, I was an art history major, and like I love studying art, and so I just have this like the fact that he analyzes art. I'm like, oh, I could do that. I could be a tactical war genius. If I was going to be a villain,
I believe in you, Jenny. You go for it. You live your dreams.
But yeah, I do recommend this book.
Adam makes a really good point in chat about Mara Jade, is that because we've already seen the end of Luke's story in this new canon, in The Last Jedi, and then in Rise of Skywalker, we know where he ends up. He doesn't get married and have kids. So like, where does Mara Jade fit into this new canon? And I have a great idea for this. I think that like, everyone's talking about how they should cast Sebastian Stan as a young Luke, and I'm for this. I think that like casting someone as a young Luke and having Luke interact with characters post Return of the Jedi is a great idea. And I think that like on his way to becoming this hermit, like let's see a little bit more Luke. They've done it with Han already, and I know they're gun shy because Solo wasn't the best received movie, but I'm for it. Let's try it again. I like Solo for the most part. So let's cast a young Luke, and then let's tell the story of him meeting Mara Jade, but then maybe we get into Luke somehow finds out through the Force or something that he actually has a relationship with this Mara Jade in an alternate universe, but he can't have it. He can't have it in this universe for some reason. And you could tell this beautiful love story, this like Romeo and Juliet story about two people who can't be together. And because of this whole like Jedi non-attachment thing, like he just can't have a relationship because he's trying to start this new Jedi Order, and he knows that attachment can lead to, the dark side, as like what happened to his father. So he doesn't go down this path of having this relationship or the children, but we get some glimpse of it, like through maybe the Force portal that we see in Rebels. Like, what if he goes into that and sees himself with Mara Jade in another universe and chooses not to have it, but then but that doesn't mean she doesn't exist. That means that they don't have the same relationship, but you could touch on it and say it's an alternate universe, and therefore making that whole alternate Legends canon real again in a way that would make me feel really good. I think that would be a really cool story to tell. But then she exists somehow in the new canon. She's not married to Luke. She doesn't have his children, but she there's more to her than that. I mean, she was the hand of the Emperor. She's a fascinating character who is a dark side wielder who goes to the light side. So much you could do there. It doesn't just have to be revolving around Luke, but I still submit that pitch. Disney, you're welcome to do it. You can pay me if you want to, but I just want to see it made.
You kind of touched
like. Oh no, you go ahead. You go.
Oh, it's okay. I would be deviating from what we're talking about, so go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say real quick on Mara Jade is because, yeah, like I know, I think we talked about it at some point before. Like, I know she marries Luke. I know that that's probably what people are expecting. But for me, like, again, because this trilogy specifically is my favorite version of it, there's no romance. Like, they're not together in this. There's no romance. Like, I liked her because she was, at that point we had Leia, but we didn't have a lot of female like characters. And I was just like, this is the most badass female character I've ever, like, one that I've ever read. Like this whole idea of her, being like the mysterious, lethal assassin behind the scenes of the Emperor, and like knowing how to use the Force, but not being trained as a Sith, but not really, like I think there's so much story to her that I don't need a romance with Luke to want her on screen. Like, I don't know. But,
I
agree. I get why people would want that.
That's real.
Okay.
Jesse, you like tapped into something that I've been wanting to talk about in Rebels for months now, since we started this club, which is the time traveling portal in the Jedi Temple on Lothal.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm ready to totally jump into that.
Let's save that for the end.
Like talking about extended universe. Like just talking about, potential characters. One thing also from Rebels that kind of is a nod to Legends / extended universe is Jason.
Right.
Which is
Jaina and
Hera
Jason.
And
I didn't even think of that. Yeah. And Kanan's
Jason
child.
Syndulla.
Yes. Like Jason Jason Solo.
Jason Solo, exactly. It's a nod to the Jason Solo that doesn't exist.
I didn't even think of that. I love that. Yeah, that's super cool. We got some really good comments in chat here. Sam says, attachment is as much to blame for Anakin's downfall as the fact that it was forbidden. And with what you guys are talking about and what Ahsoka said in this episode, I hope they touch on that. What's up, Quite the Snapper? Good to see you. So that's a really good point, is that obviously the old Jedi Order was flawed, Like, their attachment to the Force was weak enough that Palpatine was able to completely manipulate this entire situation and have them destroyed. So obviously their methodology was flawed. And I think part of what was flawed was this idea that you can't have attachment, that attachment always leads to the dark side. Because I just feel like that sends this weird message, because love is the most powerful healing emotion that there is. And fighting out of a place of love versus fighting out of a place of hate or fear is like fighting for the love of your country or for the love of your loved ones, like fighting on their behalf. Like that is one of, if not the most noble reasons to fight. So to take that away from the Jedi is an interesting thing. And I like that they did that, because I feel like they're trying to they're like operating out of fear, basically, by saying that attachment is not allowed. They're afraid that people will turn to the dark side to protect their loved ones, or be too tempted by saving their loved ones to follow their own duty. So they are acting out of fear, and that's why they have this limitation on attachment. And I love that Ahsoka brought that up in this episode. Like, she's unwilling to train Grogu because he's attached to Mando, and she's too worried that he'll turn the way that Anakin did, which is great, because in the Clone Wars, everyone turned a blind eye to Anakin loving Padme. And Obi-Wan had his love for Satine, and Ahsoka had a crush on that Mandalorian kid. What was his name? I don't remember. So she's obviously was not like a hardcore believer in the non-attachment thing when she was younger. But the fact that she is now is a direct reflection on the fact that her mentor turned to the dark side because of his attachment to his loved one. So I love that as a plot point in this episode. I thought that was super cool. Sam says the first romance Luke had turned out to be his sister. So so not all romances are canon. Yeah.
It's like, we're done. I'm not trying that again. That didn't work.
Yeah, and there was a question here. Does Ahsoka realize that Anakin was redeemed at the end? What do you guys think? That's a really great question.
Oh,
I hadn't thought of that.
I think that's interesting, because so when I hear that, it makes me think of those, like you said, Jesse, those last 4 episodes of Clone Wars in season 7 that are just so beautifully done. And she has that face off with Maul, and he keeps asking her, can't you feel the shift in the Force? Can't you feel what's going on? Like, he asks her that, and I don't know if she can. And the thing is that I find interesting, this episode was called The Jedi, and that she still responds to that, even though she technically left the Jedi Order. She left.
Right.
And, they make a point to say, yeah, she's not a part of the Jedi Order anymore. She can't be a part of our secret meeting. She can't know, what tactical things we're doing at the end of the war, blah, blah, blah. She finds out some things, but then they're like, well, you chose to leave, so we can't tell you any more information. So she has separated herself in a sense. about attachment. So I feel like, especially with realizing that, Anakin is Vader, I don't know if she might have completely detached herself and is not necessarily in tune to the Force in that way anymore. I feel like she uses it when she needs it in certain circumstances, but she's not like meditating and trying to figure out what's going on all over the universe or with specific characters. That would be my kind of assumption as I'm thinking logically what might make sense. But I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think she would sense his redemption, because that was between Luke and Anakin. That wasn't really about her.
But if they cast a young Luke if they cast a young Luke and he meets Ahsoka someday in one of these shows, maybe an Ahsoka spinoff, what a powerful opportunity they have to build a moment where Ahsoka learns that Anakin came back to himself at the very end. I want it so bad. I just want that to happen for them.
That would be really powerful.
I was thinking that she might have, because when he turns, she hears and senses that scene. Like, literally, they replay the dialogue of Mace Windu, and so she feels that scene where he kills Mace Windu, or helps the Emperor kill him. So I don't know. I thought she could possibly sense it, but if she wasn't, unless she ran into Luke. I doubt that message was spread far and wide about his redemption. I'll bet Luke knew, Leia knew, but it almost felt like he gives Darth Vader the funeral and the flames, but I don't think that was, I don't know, made into a big deal, public knowledge.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm so curious what is public knowledge in this universe now. Is Luke Skywalker a household name?
Right.
Do people know if Luke Skywalker is the guy who defeated, Darth Vader and the Emperor, or not? I'm really curious about that. They touched on it just for a second in the first episode of the season when you see that HoloNet when they're talking about the Death Star being destroyed. And I'm like, oh my God, what else do they know? I want to watch C-SPAN and Star Wars all day long and just see what do they know? If they just made if Disney Plus had a 24-hour news stream where it was just someone talking about what was going on in Star Wars, I would watch. I really want to see that. Yeah, why hasn't Anakin reached out to her then? If he's a Force ghost, he could do if he wanted to. Oh my goodness, that's so true. Anakin's a Force ghost. Why hasn't he reached out to Ahsoka? Dude, I'll bet you that's going to happen too. We keep hearing these rumors that they're going to bring Hayden Christensen back as Anakin as a Force ghost in something. We've been hearing these rumors for years. And that's if they make an Ahsoka Tano TV show, there is that opportunity as well. Oh my! I want that so bad. You guys, you're making me greedy. I want all the Star Wars.
So greedy.
I'm thinking about the fact that at the end of the episode, Ahsoka sent Mando to a Jedi temple, basically.
Yeah.
It's I can't help you but put Grogu on top of this Jedi temple. And I feel like the fact that there are still temples out there to visit, or areas that are strong in the Force that could, conjure something, we might see that. That could be the way that they do that. If you go to some kind of site on, whatever planet that is known to have a strong, sense of the Force. We see that in Jedi with Rey, even though it wasn't I wanted them to expound on that more, where she was on that planet with Luke and, she could sense the darkness, and that's where she sees all those multiples of herself, that area on the planet, and I wondered if Luke created that. Maybe I'm just forgetting. If a Jedi can create a space on a planet that is,
I think it was natural
because of their connection to the Force.
Yeah, on Octo,
I think it's a natural thing.
Yeah, on Dagobah, the cave. Dagobah is a planet that resonates with the Force, as we learned in Clone Wars, which, oh my God, was so good. But yeah, I think that's a natural occurrence of the Force.
So if there are places
Sorry, go ahead, B.
Okay. What did you say, Jenny?
Oh no, sorry. I was getting on because the Yoda Vision quest was my favorite part of Clone Wars, and going back to Dagobah and stuff. So I was about to go
awesome.
on we'll save that for Clone Wars.
Yeah. In season 6. Yeah, so good. Go ahead.
That was
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I'm just thinking if areas like that exist, and there's a potential for, Dave Filoni or whoever's writing these episodes to include some kind of encounter where it's like this area is strong with the Force, and therefore something may manifest because of whoever's visiting that space.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to find out, because anytime in the Clone Wars or in Rebels, when they visit an area that has a Jedi temple or some Force sensitive space, something always goes down. Like something gets awakened. Somebody who's, like she said, another Jedi will sense his presence and hopefully come. There's so many people. I mean, Luke could come, Ezra could come. Like it's like, who's going to sense him on top of this temple? I'm just very excited about that.
Yeah, what are the options? I mean, Luke,
there's more than I think of.
Are there more than Luke and Ezra that we know of?
Yeah, I heard online there's like at least two, oh dang, I should have written down the names. Because I think they were from Clone Wars, but they weren't names that I was super familiar. But I think there were two other Jedi I heard mentioned that it could be that are presumably still alive. I think one started with a K. Oh, dang it, I should have wrote it down. I can't remember. But I think it's going to be Ezra. I mean, that feels like where they're going, tying the Thrawn and the end of Rebels. Like, I would be surprised if, like, Ezra would be my bet.
Sam says, I heard some fan theories that Mace Windu is still alive. Also, what's up, Dio? Good to see you. Yeah, we talked a lot about Ezra earlier in the stream, and I'll leave this up if you want to go back and check it out. And we're going to talk about Rebels some more at the end. But yeah, I do think Ezra will show up at some point. Yeah, but what about Mace Windu? Mace Windu is an option. Like, he fell out a window. We didn't see any body. He's still alive. That's the Star Wars rule. If you fall from a great height and we don't see your body, you're still alive. Oh, Cal Kestis from the video game. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, from Force Unleashed, right? Is that the one? I haven't played this game. Someday I got to get a PlayStation, maybe the PS5, and like play all the Star Wars games I've missed. Yeah, and then there was something about there was something that like referenced Darth Revan. Was it the droids, the assassin droids? That maybe like it was either Thrawn or Darth Revan that made those assassin droids that were the same model as the ones we saw in this episode. Maybe it was Thrawn. Yeah, I forget about the video games too, Sam. And it depends on which ones you play.
Yeah,
I played like the original Knights of the Old Republic, and I was really into it. So I would love to see something about Darth Revan show up someday. Oh my God, Adam, thank you. This is a great question.
Oh my God.
This leads me into the next thing that we have not even talked about yet. We haven't even gotten to Grogu yet. Like, we got a name for Baby Yoda, people. We're all just throwing it out there like it's not a big deal. But Adam asks, is Grogu Yoda and Yaddle's child? The age would be correct. So, yeah, I mean, this is huge right now. It's huge. So, Yaddle was a female version of Yoda's species that we saw in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's the only time that she appears. She's never seen again. Ahsoka doesn't even seem to know that she existed, so she probably died between episodes 1 and 2. So now that we know that Yoda or Baby Yoda, Grogu, lived on Coruscant, was born on Coruscant, maybe, but definitely lived on Coruscant, was trained as a Jedi on Coruscant. It does kind of make you question: is he the child of Yoda and Yaddle? I mean, we talked about this non-attachment thing. Like, what if Yoda, great Jedi Master Yoda, had a child? We've always just assumed that Baby Yoda was not actually Yoda's baby. We've always assumed that. But now I'm like, wait a second. This actually lines up. Like, what if Baby Yoda is actually a Baby Yoda? Like, what do you guys make of this?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I could be completely wrong, but we don't know really what Yoda's species is or where their home planet is, correct? We don't know those things.
We don't know.
Do we know those things?
We do not.
I may just not know.
No.
Nobody knows.
No.
So,
nope.
So with that in mind, I feel like there's a lot of possibility that Grogu would not be the love child of Yaddle and Yoda, especially because Baby Yoda or Grogu was trained at the Coruscant Jedi Temple, which is like the most prestigious temple, I would say, because it's in the core part of the core worlds. It's like where the slaughter happens. That's what I thought of immediately when Ahsoka was talking about just giving Mando information about who Grogu was.
Sorry, go ahead. Someone was calling me on Discord, which was really... How do I stop that from happening? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
But
all
like the fact that...
Hold on, I gotta block this person real quick. Give me 1 second. Okay. 1 second. Sorry, you're gonna see weird shit on stream. Wait, where'd he go? Oh, he just disappeared. Okay, never mind. All good. That's I gotta figure out how to make sure that I make my Discord private while we're streaming, so no one else. I mean, it's in streamer mode. So I'll figure this out later. Sorry, it's all good. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Someone's just trying to troll us. It's all good. I'm sorry, I ruined your train of thought there. Just the
fact that Grogu. It's okay. Grogu escaped slaughter from Darth Vader. Like he literally did. Like that's trauma. I'm like, this poor thing experienced trauma. And we have to also realize when, Luke and Leia were born, I believe, what is it? They say it's the timeline is before the Battle of Yavin, right? That's how they, at least on Wikipedia, they do,
right. BBY
to kind of let you know what's happening. So it's 19 years, I believe, is when is that time span when we hit Luke. He's 19 and it's been 19 years since the Empire rose. So if you subtract 19 from 50, you think how old was Grogu when all this happened? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, he was even younger than he is now. And it's just like that. And the fact that he has all this all his memories are dark and he can't remember, what happened between, when we find him and when all this happened. It's just like, wow, that's trauma. I just loved that he was so close to the main storyline.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That grounded the episode for me even more. It's just like, wow, he was in the heart, like literally in the heat of where all of this went down. Like Mace Windu got electrocuted and thrown out of a building. He went off and did the Emperor's bidding, and just slaughtered all these younglings. Like he would have been one of the younglings that were slaughtered. I wonder who had the foresight to hide him, or who was able to hide him before things went down.
Yeah,
it made me want to know what happened.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, what do you think about the possibility that Yoda and Yaddle had this baby? Like, we also don't know how their species reproduces. I mean, there are species that reproduce without sex. Like maybe Yaddle laid some eggs, and that's why he loves eggs. And someone said earlier in chat, didn't another Jedi get permission from the Jedi Order to have sex because they were an endangered species? So that's an interesting thing too. Like, is there special dispensation from the Jedi Academy for conjugal visits if it's to save your species?
Wow. Really good point.
For extinction level events. I mean, that's kind of messed up. Like, that actually made me think of Natasha Romanoff in Avengers, how her backstory, the little bit that we've gotten of it, she talks about forced sterilization because attachments are a risk to the Black Widows. If you're like a secret assassin, like having someone you love or having attachment is a risk. And so they force them to be sterilized and, they're discouraged from romantic partners. So it's interesting. Like, that's a villain training villains, training that, and the Jedi have the same policy.
Yeah.
It's kind of messed up.
But
yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, I don't know. Anything's possible. He could be their child, but like, I feel like the way that we've seen how Jedi go out to the universe and find Force-sensitive children, it seems unlikely that Yoda's just like, well, here's one. Train him up. I feel like that.
I found him. I just found him. I found him in my girlfriend. I just found him.
I don't know how to think about that. I feel like how could we not know? How could we not know if that is the case? If it's all happening on Coruscant, everything is very exposed, and Yoda doesn't really hide things. I feel like it would be everybody would know.
I feel like I think that would be too. I don't know. It's like Yoda's the only one, and Yaddle, but pretty much the only one we know of this species, and then this is his son. I don't know. I kind of hope not. Personally, I think it'd be a little bit of a weird one to backtrack and make that make sense with everything we've seen of Yoda during the prequels and the Clone Wars and everything. Seems a little bit. I don't know. Who knows? Again, I trust Dave Filoni. Like, if he's Yoda's son, I'll probably be fine with it when it happens.
I agree with you, though. I feel like I kind of don't want that.
So real.
Yeah, like I kind of don't want that because, like, Jon Favreau was like adamant when everyone started calling the child Baby Yoda. He's like, it's not Baby Yoda. It's not actually Yoda's baby. He was like adamant about this. And then we're talking about like a 900-year-old dad. Like he should have had a baby when he was 200 or 300. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I'm not wild about it being Yoda's actual baby. If for any other reason that I don't like when showrunners kind of get out there and say this is the way, and then it's all like misdirection just to keep people surprised. Like that annoys me. So just for that reason alone, I hope it's not Yoda's baby. But also, I feel like the whole idea of trying to tell a story about Yoda having a child after Yoda has already died in universe and can't speak for himself would be a little bit of a bummer. It's like we don't need to tarnish all of our heroes, you know? Like let's let Yoda be. He lived a great life. Right. He saved the universe more times than I can count.
Yeah. Let Grogu stand on his own, be his own character, his own background. Yeah.
What do you guys think of the name Grogu itself?
Like, who knows? Like,
I think we have some delay.
I feel like it reveals.
We're trying to have a live conversation, but we have so much delay. Yeah, we definitely got some delay going. Let's try disconnecting and reconnecting this call and see if we can get a little closer together. Because I keep feeling like I'm talking over people because it's taking a second to go through. So do you guys mind trying real quick? So go ahead and...
Do I need to do anything? Or?
Just try disconnecting and reconnecting real fast, and we'll see. Let's all do it real quick. The stream is going to continue. We're just doing this in Discord. Now you see two of me, I'm sorry. There we go. And they're back. Okay, talk to me.
Okay.
Hey!
Yay, okay, that's much better. All right, sorry, go ahead, B. What were you saying?
I don't know. What was the question?
Who knows?
I already forgot.
Oh, we're talking about Yoda, let Grogu speak for himself. Oh, what do you think of the actual name Grogu for this child?
Oh, yeah. I think it's interesting to think of all the names for the characters that we know of this species. So Yaddle, Yoda, Grogu. Like, it's just like, how do they, because there's often like similarities when you look at different species of what their names sound like. Like, okay, like this is a part of, I don't know, like the history of the name. But that's just the first thing I think of. It's like, does it sound like it tracks with the species that we know, what we know about the species? But I think someone, what is it? Dio said Grogu versus Groot. I was like, yeah, it does make me think of other fandoms where we have those funky G names. Like, it totally makes me think of that too. But I don't have too much opinion about it. I just loved that he responded to it immediately. And like you said earlier, Jesse, that Grogu understands more than we. Just was so cute that when Mando said Grogu, he was like, right? Immediately, so animated. It was like, oh, that's my name. And it's just it's so amazing, like what it means to be known and to be seen. And I just felt like we're starting to get a deeper understanding of, this baby it is a child in, looking at, even though it's 50 years old, it is still a child, but that Grogu has experienced a lot. And like when I loved the scene where Ahsoka grabbed his little hand and it's like, I sense much fear in you.
Yeah.
I just feel like she had so much respect for him. Yeah, the name I think is cute and kind of like almost makes me think of like Goonies. It makes me think of other weird G names that like trigger in my mind. Groot, Goonies. But I think it's fine.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's great. It fits this character.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm glad they, I was trying to think, is it going to be like Yabba or Yobo or like
exactly right?
With, like the Y. I kind of would have maybe rolled my eyes if it was like Yabba or something okay. I don't know. I like it. I think it's cute. Grogu, I'm a fan. I didn't think about that baby Grogu and Groot.
Yeah. Adam says I wasn't a huge fan of the name at first. Sam says I think it's great. It's not an obnoxiously weird and distracting name, but it's very obviously alien. And if they did a Y name, it would feel kind of lazy. Andrew loves Yobo. You have Yabba, which is like Yoda and Jabba had a baby. It'd be a big ass Yoda.
Yeah, I was happy with it. Grogu.
Yobo? Yodale? There were so many options that they didn't choose. But yeah, I'm happy with Grogu. I think it's really interesting to finally name this character. That's something I actually had been thinking about. It's like, is Mando ever going to name the child? He just calls him Kid all the time.
Yeah.
But Yagoba. Yodadle. These are really good. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we've gone this long without knowing his name. Yavin 4. Well, I guess it would be Yavin 5, right? We could name this kid Yavin 5. Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like, what have we not... I do want to talk about Rebels and Clone Wars a bit, but what else have we missed about this episode? We've talked about Ahsoka, about Grogu. We didn't talk about the owl. Remind me of the owl's name? I forgot.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember. So yeah, she picks up the owl though in Rebels, right? Before that, she doesn't have. Or no, it isn't Clone Wars.
Morai. Thank you, Morai.
On Morai. Okay.
Yeah. So my understanding.
That is. Yep. That's it.
My understanding of Morai is that Morai's a her, right? I'm not sure.
And that's the planet with the daughter, the sister, and the brother, and the father, right?
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The daughter, the father, and the son. Yeah,
that are then referenced at the end of Rebels. Well, I guess this is gonna transfer us into talking about Rebels a little bit. But yeah, so Morai is attached to the sister on that weird planet in season 3, I think, of Clone Wars. And then when the sister dies, Morai transfers over to Ahsoka. And it seems like, I mean, Ahsoka was killed, but then her spirit is reanimated by the life force from the daughter, right? I'm forgetting things, and I watched a video about this recently.
Yeah, they do some kind of energy transfer thing, and I think Ahsoka was dead, and she essentially transferred her life force over to her. Yeah,
so
exactly, which we know is a thing because we saw it happen all up in 9.
Yeah.
Right. All up on, absolutely. So Morai is supposedly kind of following Ahsoka for all of that time, season 4 of Clone Wars and then into Rebels. And it's so weird that at the end of Rebels, when Ezra pulls Ahsoka out of that moment in time where she's battling Vader, pulls her into this force pathway. What's up, Joe? Oh, good to see you. That's the first, and they talk about Morai in that moment, how Morai was always following Ahsoka. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never seen this owl before. I had no memory of Morai in that episode on the planet with the father and the son and the daughter. But more than that, I don't remember ever seeing Morai in the Clone Wars past that point, following Ahsoka around. So now I'm so curious to go back and rewatch. I don't remember seeing Morai in Rebels. It's they're trying to trick us and just say, oh, Morai's always been hanging around this whole time like Ezra says, like this owl was always around when Ahsoka came to visit us on whatever planet they were talking about. I'm like, I don't remember that ever happening, but we're supposed to kind of either take it on faith that it happened, or on rewatch actually see that it did happen, and Morai was in the background and we just didn't notice. Do you guys have any knowledge about this that I don't have? Because I watched this also spread out. I forgot a lot about early Clone Wars seasons.
No, I completely agree. I don't remember Morai being seen that much after that episode in Clone Wars, but definitely in Rebels. Not so much in Clone Wars.
You do remember seeing Morai?
I remember seeing him and him, whatever, in Rebels. But yeah, I remember. I didn't even remember though that it happened on that planet, or whatever with the father and all that. Like, yeah, I don't remember the owl in Clone Wars at all. I like literally just watched it and I don't remember it all. But I remember seeing it in Rebels. I can't remember the exact context or anything, but I knew of it. Or like little talisman or something. But it didn't seem like a major thing they talked about a lot.
Yeah, the owl's definitely scattered.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this owl, like in the forest in this episode. Uh-oh. Are we frozen? My computer froze. Not sure if I'm still live.
We can hear you.
Oh. Live stream. Okay, the stream went offline, but maybe it's coming and it's back. Okay, I think we're good. Hold on, we gotta tell people to refresh. Okay, we're still live. It's looking good. Yeah, my computer might have just overheated or something. It's very, very hot to the touch. Let me like open my window and try to cool it down here.
Oh, we gotta talk about the low cat too.
Yeah, we saw a low cat. I was like, what's a low cat doing on this planet? I guess it could be anywhere.
I wanted to go back and like freeze frame it because it's very quick. I couldn't even quite see like what the face looked like in real life. Because the little cats are like very like cartoon with their like big smiles, and I was curious how they would make that real life.
I thought it was perfect. I love the version of the Loth cat. Okay, so we got to talk about this like force pathway that we discover in Rebels, where you can travel instantaneously to other places in the galaxy, and Palpatine is trying to take it over, but Ezra prevents that. Like the way that all came together at the end of Rebels was amazing. I loved it so much. I love Stargate. Bring a little bit of Force Stargate into the mix, and I'm all about it. But B, I know you have a lot of thoughts about this, so go.
Exactly. Okay, I'll try not to be overwhelmed. So, like, I've been wanting to talk about this specific plot point, like, since I joined Star Wars Club. So I've been holding it for like a year. Like, has it been a year? Like, I think almost, because it was December of last year, I think, that I started talking to you guys.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it tied directly to my critique or my response to Rise of Skywalker, and I was not super impressed with the film. I wanted something more original, something more connected to the rest of the canon. And after watching Rebels and having that whole plot point of time travel, because a lot of people were, before we knew really anything about what 9 was going to be, we're talking about, what can they do that could be really entertaining, and time travel is one of the things that was talked about. And I'm like, well, we've introduced that already in Rebels. Like, there's and the fact that Palpatine knows about it.
Yeah.
Like, and the fact that they wanted to bring him back. I'm like, it just seemed logical to me. Like, if we can go back, if any particular person goes into that part of the temple and can look at their timeline, like basically big moments in their life, and different moments throughout the galaxy. Because even in that Rebels, in that scene, in that episode, you hear Rey's voice talking to Finn when he's injured after that fight with Kylo Ren in the first in episode 7. You hear Obi-Wan's voice. Like, there's so many iconic scenes that impact everybody's story that you hear as he's running through this part of the temple. There's all these different portals to different like pivotal moments in time for Jedi, but it's also pivotal moments in time for Ezra because he's the one in the temple. So like, no wonder Palpatine wants access to this. Like, are you kidding? Like, you can manipulate time and space. Like, it's gold. So the fact that he knows about it and also can access it from outside the temple, because he tried to grab Ahsoka and Ezra, he tried to reach them with that force fire or whatever it was to like basically allow their connection to the temple to allow him to enter in. I'm like, if that's what they would have, what I wanted to see was the moment in Return of the Jedi when Darth Vader throws Darth Sidious down the shaft. And he's like, all the electricity flying down. I wanted that moment, somebody to snatch his ass and save him from that temple. Like, what would be a better way to like, you know what I mean? You could go back to that moment in time using this portal and snatch his ass. And I'm like, I would believe that. I would believe that's how the hell he came back, not some mummified, crusty mess with Snoke babies all over. I'm like, what is this? I have a lot of opinions, but like,
I love that.
I wanted to see time travel. And I wanted to see a connection to even like Dare to Dream. What would happen if we went even farther back? You know what I mean? Like, if they went even farther back to before the war began, what would happen if Anakin never became Darth Vader, able to raise his children? If, you know what I mean? If Padme didn't die. Like, there's so many things that they could have played with. Even Rey looking at different things in her future or her past that impacted her. Choices that she could have made another time. There was just so much they could have done with that. And I felt like with Dave Filoni, he's weaving in so many things from Clone Wars, from Rebels into Mandalorian. And he's so good at that because he honors the full canon. And a little bit of extended universe too. He's bringing it back in, as someone mentioned in the chat. Little by little. So like, for me, I just didn't think that, I thought it was they didn't do enough in 9 to really justify this 9-episode story. Like, there's so much that has happened. Wouldn't it be amazing to honor the canon by going back to number 6 in 9, going back to the beginning, you know, and really honoring the original trilogy by linking it to what's happening. Like, that's what I wanted. And that's what I was dreaming of, because I was like, you guys have basically told me through Rebels that this is possible. Why did we not do that?
That's so good.
That's what I've been.
I love that. That's brilliant. I mean, that's a really, really deeply satisfying way to bring Palpatine into episode 9. Like, that would have been super cool. Like, the fact that he's still alive, you know, maybe he was like pulled back into his own timeline years ago and then built the First Order as he did. But the way he survived was by, you know, someone going into that portal. Maybe Thrawn, maybe the Emperor trained Thrawn to go get him out of this portal should he ever be killed or something like that. Or Mara Jade, who's a Force user. I don't know. You know, this shit writes itself because it's brilliant. But that would have been a lot more satisfying. Although I will say that it seems like the entirety of The Mandalorian as a show is actually trying to tell that story of how the First Order rose and how the Emperor like continued to exist by doing these experiments on Grogu. So I feel like we're still getting a really, I mean, you know, I liked episode 9 a lot more than you did. And I feel like we're still getting a really satisfying, we're going to get a satisfying explanation of how the Emperor survived eventually. We just don't quite have it yet, but we have pieces of it now with Grogu. And I think that that's cool. I think that like Dave Filoni is the master of taking any canon that exists and weaving it together in a satisfying way. You know, like with midichlorians, like talking about, you know, Baby Yoda's M count That was great. I love that. It made me glad the midichlorians existed. Yeah.
I've changed my tune on midichlorians. I never thought I would, but after Clone Wars, and again, that episode with Yoda, I've kind of come to appreciate them and this sort of exploring, I don't know, I guess the science behind the Force and how it works. Like, midichlorians became way more interesting to me after that episode with Yoda's little video game side quest thing. I don't know, remind me of a video game, like something on the little like mushroom floating like clouds and stuff. So I'm actually excited that midichlorians are back in the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like all canon exists. Like everything that happened in Star Wars, whether you liked it or not, it happened in Star Wars. And everybody has a different opinion about what is good and what is bad canon. So the correct thing to do is to use all of it, you know? Just assume that all of it actually happened, and then if you don't like a piece of canon, then you can do something new that you do like based off of it. And I mean, the first example of this to me was in episode 3, actually, when we have that opera scene, which I love, where Palpatine basically tells Anakin like that you can create life through the midichlorians. And when midichlorians were introduced, I hated them. I thought it was like the worst thing ever. I'm like, you've just ruined the Force forever. But then the idea that like the midichlorians could be twisted to create Anakin is really interesting. And the idea that, I mean, there's so many things you could do with midichlorians. Like you could say that what I don't like about it is the idea that you're either born with the Force or you're not, based off of a blood test. I think that that's super lame. I do think it would be interesting if your midichlorian count changed as you got older, as you grew with the Force. Like there is something physical that you can measure about your Force ability, but not that you were born with it or not. Like I don't like that exclusionary Force sensitivity. I love the idea that people all over the galaxy are either born with the Force or without it. I think that that's really powerful. But when you make it like genetic, it becomes predictable in a way that I find less satisfying. So, but I still feel like there's ways that you could build out midichlorian lore more and make it even more interesting. And they're already doing cool stuff with it, which is really cool. Joe, I missed your question because of the stream fail. I'm sorry. Ask me again. The Clone Wars saved the prequels in so many ways. That's very, very true. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that the Clone Wars have recontextualized the prequel trilogy in a way that makes me like them so much more. Even if I don't like the production value or the acting or the writing, which I don't because all of it's bad, I still like the story. And I like the way that the Clone Wars cartoon, even though like the production quality on the first few seasons I really didn't like when you look at it as a whole and the story of it, it's really great. And it's so good. Like season 7 is so well produced. The animation is gorgeous. They just really, really get their stride. And that last couple episodes is, like I said last time, is one of my new favorite Star Wars movies total. I mean, the last 4 episodes are so good. Jenny, you just watched this. How did you feel about it?
Oh yeah, no, that last scene where Darth Vader arrived, like you see Ahsoka like set down her lightsaber, and then the next scene it's all covered in snow and Darth Vader, and that like just that visual of that stark, like his black outfit and the white snow, and then him like picking up, and then that last shot, the reflection and the clone trooper. I was just like, what is this?
I know.
Beauty? And, like, this is like, it didn't have to be this good. Like, it was so beautiful. And I watched, so I did kind of what I said, like I watched most of season 7, and then I left the last 2 episodes and I watched Revenge of the Sith in between. And I gotta say, I loved Revenge of the Sith more than anything, more than I ever have. And I actually would say that I actually really love that movie now. It's probably the only one still, because I did watch Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace again recently, and I still think they're bad movies. But Revenge of the Sith, it's now, rather than like an movie that I like a couple parts of, like I actually love it, and there's a couple scenes that I don't like. But yeah, oh my god, it hit so much harder, like, and it was so interesting. Like all of a sudden, I was like trying to pay attention to the few times they use the clone troopers' names. Like Cody is mentioned. I didn't think Rex mentioned in Revenge of the Sith.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think Rex is a Dave Filoni creation.
Okay, but they mentioned Cody a couple times, and oh god, and just watching it in that, like having watched all the Clone Wars, and watching Revenge of the Sith, and then watching the final two and how they interact with each other, this is like the story of the Clone Wars that I'd been wanting since I was a kid. Like that I just ever since, that scene with Obi-Wan and Luke when he first says he was I was Jedi like your father, the best starfighter in the gallery. We fought in the Clone Wars together. Like ever since hearing that, this is like what I'd wanted.
Just like, what is a Clone War? Like I was so excited as a kid about that.
All of it, like
it's
arc. Like I love Obi-Wan Kenobi so much. I mean, he was already my favorite part of the prequels, but just getting to know his character over the thing with Satine and all of it.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, man, Obi-Wan's backstory with Satine is really wonderful. What I love about the Clone Wars cartoons is that they take moments, they play the emotional quality of moments really well. Like the last episode of the Clone Wars, it finally breaks your heart that the clones were forced to turn on the Jedi. It finally breaks your heart, like something that should have broken your heart.
Rex was hand-speaking, even when he's like pointing the guns to her, and I'm just like.
Yeah, like in episode 3, the clones are basically played as drones. I mean, in episode 2 and 3, they're basically played as drones, like kind of almost mindless, but they're not played that way in the cartoon. Like the way that the clones are characterized in the cartoon is so good, and how they're all the same person but slightly different. It's done extremely well, and it gets better and better as you go along because like these men grow and get more and more different as they grow, but still the same, and they're all still brothers. And it just really breaks your heart. I mean, the moments that made me cry the most in the Clone Wars finale was Rex. When Rex was weeping for the loss of his brothers. And then hearing in the end of Rebels that Rex fought in the Battle of Endor, I was like, fuck yeah, Rex fought in the Battle of Endor. That made me so emotional. And like Hera fighting in Endor, I'm like, I want to go pause every frame of Return of the Jedi now and see if I can find the ghost.
I
know the ghost is supposed to be at the end on Exegol in 9.
It is. I saw it in 9, and you can see it in Rogue One too.
And they also, we probably talked about this, but in Rogue One, over the PA, at one point they say General Syndulla to command control or something. Like
I didn't know that.
Her name. I heard that part. I heard it last time I watched. I mean, I saw somewhere, so I was knowing to listen for it, but I heard it and I was like,
oh.
I have a theory though, like I was thinking about this because so after watching the whole Clone Wars and you see clone troopers are essentially stormtroopers version 1, right? I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, right? But like the clone troopers become stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And yet they're so much more effective as clone troopers, like in this army where again they're given their humanity and they're treated with respect. I mean, we see that contrast in a couple episodes, like with that side quest episode with the creature. It's the same species as the guy in the diner with the 4 arms, the big guy.
The Jedi. Traitor. Yeah.
Oh, that episode made me so mad.
I know.
When Anakin has to leave the planet and this guy's in charge and he refuses to call them by their names and only calls them by their numbers, and like, so just to see that contrast of how well and respected they are treated by the Jedi. And I'm like thinking like, I don't know if they're meaning to, but if this is almost like the fact that they are actually a pretty efficient, like good, they can shoot and kill things, and then they become stormtroopers and they can't shoot for shit and they're just dying all the time. Like, and I wonder if that's like the difference when you have troopers that are actually fighting for a cause they believe in and they're treated with respect, and then when they become the emperors, they are just drones basically. I mean, they're like,
that's so interesting, Jenny. And maybe activating Order 66, maybe there's a side effect of that chip that it makes them not quite as effective soldiers as they were before, because you're basically overriding their free will, and that has to affect these men. And my understanding is that at the end of the Clone War, they don't manufacture any more clones. They just start putting humans or whoever into stormtrooper uniforms. so that by the time of, A New Hope and Battle of Yavin and all that, there's maybe a few clones left over, but it's mostly recruits. Because there's actually a line in the beginning of episode 7 where they say like there's no more clones, it's just all humans at this point. Okay, yeah. So I think it's just like a slow fade out.
Yeah. I knew at one point they switched over because obviously Finn, but I couldn't remember.
It was in Rebels, right? Rex tells them when they find them. I think who mentioned it? Sam mentioned it in the chat that after Order 66. They were decommissioned.
Oh,
I think Rex, when we first see Rex and
I didn't remember
on that planet in Rebels, when we first meet him, he talks about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that. I want to read. That's one of the episodes I want to go back and
that was their whole purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So wait, did they explain like they just decom and they're just like, okay, you're done, and then what? They just started recruiting new people after, like, let all of the clones go?
And if it's the Emperor, that means they killed them. Like the Emperor's the Emperor's not just gonna like retire these, like the Emperor who made these clones. There is evidence of what he did. They're not gonna let that happen. Okay, we got a bunch in chat that we got to go back to because we missed a whole ton of stuff. Joe asks, how did you like Rosario's performance as Ahsoka, and what was your reaction to the reveal of Baby Yoda's name and backstory? Joe. Let me refer you to the first hour and a half of this stream because it took us a long ass time to answer that question, but it's all there. You can hear it. It's all there. Papa Don't Creech, Andrew asks, can y'all talk about Ahsoka's white sabers? So what is the history of her white lightsabers? Because I don't remember this. If this was covered in Clone Wars, it's something that I have forgotten.
Anakin gives them to her, right? He presents her with as a gift, like it's like one of their last scenes together. He gives her these two lightsabers, but then
that was her sabers. Those were her sabers that she left behind when she left the Order. So they were already her sabers before that.
Exactly.
And I don't remember how she got white lightsabers. If someone in chat knows,
I don't either. I feel like because I did read the Ahsoka novel, like I have that novel, but I read it like when it came out, and I haven't read it again. And I feel like, I don't know if they talk about it in that book. Yeah, I don't remember how it's new lightsabers.
Yeah, and then she leaves.
Because she leaves one of them.
Right.
She leaves one of them, and that's like the last scene in Clone. Oh, and I guess I can't remember what she has in Does she have the white ones in Rebels?
We have an answer in chat. She gets them in the Ahsoka novel. And Adam was also mentioning this novel, saying he's glad he read this. So is that one you'd recommend, Adam, the Ahsoka novel? She purified an Inquisitor's red crystals that she fought. That reminds me of a question that I have. So at the end of season 2 of Rebels, we see that fight between Ahsoka and Vader, and it's awesome. It's amazingly good. It's like one of the high points of the whole series. And that is the moment that Ezra pulls her out of in the end of season 4. So my memory of this was that like Ahsoka and Vader are fighting and that cavern collapses around them, and we don't see Ahsoka again in Rebels until we see her at the end of season 4 when Ezra pulls her out. Is that right? Is that how it went down? So she like skipped a few years of her own life, right? Like she traveled forward in time by a couple of years after that fight with Vader to the moment where she meets Ezra. So she skipped over some years of her life, right?
No, so she was supposed to die. I'm pretty sure she was supposed to die. And it's interesting because in the episode, I think it's season 2 of Rebels. When that fight is actually taking place in real time. At the very end of the episode, we see her hobbling away, like we see her in season 4,
that's right.
And then we see Vader and them go their separate ways. But we don't realize that that's her hobbling away after she has been saved by Ezra and then put back into her original timeline.
Got it. So when he put her back, it was in her original timeline. I thought that he put her back in his timeline in the same place, but I think you're right that he put her back in the original timeline, and then she lived out her future from there. So that's so interesting because so she had like knowledge of Kanan's death and could have done something about it, but chose not to because Kanan's death is what prevented the TIE Defender program from going forward. And that whole story arc with the Loth Wolves and Kanan and Doom, oh, that was amazing. It was so good. And cool. The fact that like his life had to be forfeit in order for the planet of Lothal to survive, and he had this deep connection to the planet, and that kept coming back over and over again, and it was so that this TIE Defender program would be stopped. Because when I was watching Rebels, I was like, these TIE fighters are too powerful. How could they have been working on these before the Battle of Yavin, and the Empire wasn't didn't completely blow over the Rebels immediately? It's because Kanan Jarrus gave his life so that wouldn't happen. And then the first Death Star is destroyed. The Emperor pours all their energy into building the second Death Star, and in that, and that's why they never go back to Lothal. And Sabine like confirms that. She says like the war really heated up after they liberated Lothal at the end of the show. So the Empire never had a chance to come back and try to retake Lothal, which I think was really great writing, like really lined up with canon super well. It's one of those big questions I had about Rebels when I was watching it the whole time. It's like, how does this make sense with canon? And they answered all those questions really well. Like, what happened to the Jedi? Because there's no Jedi in Luke Skywalker's time. Well, Ezra Bridger's out somewhere at the edge of the galaxy with Thrawn, wherever the Purgles took him, and Kanan dies. And Kanan was always going to die. I was like, I was counting the days until Kanan died since the first episode. I thought he was going to die at the end of season 2.
I kept saying that.
Yeah, and his death was one of the best moments of the show. I hate to say that because I love that character, but they just paid so much homage to that character and gave him this insane hero's death, like holding back the fire to save his friends and to save the entirety of the planet, to blow up this fuel depot. And like realizing in the next episode, it's like, wow, we actually won, like we won this fight. They can't produce these TIE Defenders anymore because of what Kanan did. It was all so good. It reminded me of like peak level Legends canon, reading those books back in the day, of like reading these stories that interweave with the Skywalker saga and feeling that it added so much to the story. And I was so glad that I took the time to read it, no matter how inconsistent it might be, or how boring some chapters might be, or some whole books might be. The whole experience was worth it because of these little tidbits that like were just brilliant pieces of story that had so much extra weight because they tied into the Skywalker saga. And I absolutely felt that while watching Clone Wars and Rebels, which is why I'm now watching Resistance. I'm 4 episodes in and nothing interesting has happened, but I am watching that show. I'm going to watch the whole thing.
Is Resistance the other animated one?
Yeah.
The cartoon?
Yeah, so Dave Filoni made Resistance also, and that's why I'm watching it. I thought it was 2D animation, but it's just from seeing like images from it, but it's not. It's actually 3D animation that's cell shaded, like Breath of the Wild. Oh. So it's actually kind of beautiful animation. The characters are pretty annoying, and the setting is like barely tangentially related to the Resistance, but there is some interesting stuff in there. Like you get a sense of how the galaxy at large is like, yeah, I don't believe in the First Order, and the Resistance are considered extremists who are panicking about a threat that isn't really even considered to be real. Because a lot of people just don't buy into the fact that the New Order, or the New Order, the First Order is a threat. New Order made some great music in the 80s. The First Order is very different. And then also, there's a character that used to fight with the Rebel Alliance, which you find out like 4 episodes in that he was part of the rebellion. And then his backstory, I'm suddenly interested in. I don't know what it is yet. I'm talking about Yeager, the character Yeager. But the main character is like kind of a bumbling fool who... He's like sweet and he's a good kid, but he's just like constantly breaking everything. He's like the Jar Jar of human beings. Yeah. I'm excited to see where it goes. I feel like it's gonna. I didn't have none. Yeah, but that's how I felt about Clone Wars at first. I was like, why am I watching this? And I came to love it so much. So I have faith in Dave Filoni. I'll give you guys a report. I'm gonna keep watching it for sure.
Have you watched any of the Rebels shorts? Has anyone? I noticed those on Disney Plus. Are they worthwhile? Is it like new?
They're kind of cute.
They're short, yeah.
Mostly the first and second season.
Oh, okay. I was thinking I would check those out. I'm starting to exhaust all of my Star Wars content that I can consume.
I know. It's like now we need more. And that's the beauty of all this is like I'm like deep in again in a way that. Yeah, I might check out some of the books. Like I'm feeling stoked about Star Wars in a way I haven't been since Episode 1 came out and kind of broke me out of the fandom because I didn't like the movie so much.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I feel like. I feel this is the most invested. I mean, I never stopped being a Star Wars fan, but like I said, I hadn't even watched any. I didn't bother to watch Clone Wars. I really had no interest in the animated shows because I didn't know I was missing out. Yeah, like I was just like a curmudgeon-y, old, stubborn original trilogy fan.
Me too.
And this is the most excited I've been, and I'm so excited for the books. Oh, what I was gonna say to be, because one of my favorite arcs in Clone Wars. Well, because you were saying like your favorite Sith Lord, or your favorite was
Darth Revan.
Ventress.
Oh yeah.
And,
Bees, yeah.
I have it, Ventress, and so I I thought she was cool when I first saw her.
Same.
But I have to admit, like I was a little bit like she reminded me of Nebula a little bit from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
This kind of like, hello boys, like this lanky which is cool, but she, oh my god, I did not expect as much character development. Like that was probably one of my favorite arcs of Clone Wars was like what I was calling like the villain's journey. Like when you go into Dathomir, right? Dathomir, and just learning about Asajj Ventress and her going on, and all of a sudden, like I was like, this is just so weird. Me feeling so differently about her and feeling compassion for her and understand she got so much more interesting. And then learning how they're related to Maul and like the brothers and the sisters and like these two, and then the women are I was loving that whole part of Clone Wars with Darth Maul and Savage and everything with Asajj Ventress. I am so excited to read Dark Disciple now. I was not that into her at first, but she got way more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have it, so I don't know.
I've got
it somewhere.
I've been thinking fondly about the original Legends canon recently and how I kind of want to go back. My favorite book of the original canon was I, Jedi, which was a spin-off from the X-Wing Rogue Squadron series, where like Wedge Antilles had this group of like crack pilots, but one of them was force sensitive, and then he got a spin-off book, and it was awesome. I loved it so much, but I haven't read it since I was a kid, and I barely remember it.
I don't remember if I've read that one. There was some Instagram account I started following that just like literally all their account is they just post photos of the old book covers, but of like legend stuff. But there were so many that they were posting as I was scrolling through that I totally forgot about, like the courtship of Princess Leia, Spectre of the Past, which is just the funniest. But I remember liking that one. I would be curious to read that one, the courtship of Princess Leia. I remember actually enjoying that one. I can't remember anything about the plot. I remember liking Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah.
But I don't think I read iRobot. I don't think I read any of the Rogue Squadron ones.
They were good. And Adam just name dropped Corran Horn. That's it. Yeah, that's the guy. Corran Horn was the rebel fighter pilot who was force sensitive. And then, yes, Andrew, I did read the Jedi Apprentice series. And that's like one of the really early trilogies. Like, I think that's the second trilogy after the Thrawn trilogy, if you read them in the order that they happen. Yeah. I remember not liking that one as much. I liked it. And that was the thing about those books is like, even if you didn't like the book as much, they still felt like Star Wars for the most part. So you still felt like you were in the Star Wars universe, which is where I wanted to be. But then as they went along and got further and further away from the Battle of Yavin, from like the Battle of Endor, into the future, it started to feel less and less like Star Wars, and I just stopped reading them eventually.
Yeah, there were some that went like 20, 30 years in the future, and I kind of, in fact, there's one that I think I only got halfway through. It was like the last Star Wars Legend book I ever read, and I never finished it. I can't even remember which one it was. But yeah, and after that, I just kind of fell off. I'm almost like, part of me wants, like, I am probably going to read the Thrawn trilogy again just because I love it so much, but I'm almost nervous to read more Legends because I feel like I'm going to get so confused with the canon. Like, I almost want to just read the canon, and so I get, like, otherwise I'm going to start mixing things up. I don't know.
That's valid. I definitely need to read the Ahsoka novel again. I have it right here.
Nice.
Because I read it a couple times, and I actually didn't care for it very much the first time I read it. I felt like my first impression was that I was waiting for something to happen the whole time. For a lot of it, it just kind of felt like just a documentation of what she did while trying to hide from the Empire while they were trying to find, any remaining Jedi. And it just wasn't that compelling to me. And it follows a similar story of her basically helping a planet defend themselves, or a town on a planet defend themselves, similar to what we see in her introduction in episode 5 that we just saw.
Yeah.
So it's like, it feels very true to kind of how she's been spending her time after the fall of the Jedi. But I just I wanted it to be more than what it was. I guess I was looking for something a little bit more exciting. I feel like that's why I don't remember so much from it, because I was like, this is not as exciting as I thought it was going to be. But I need to read it again to get a fresher opinion of it. So that's something I'm definitely going to dive back into. And just to talk about my favorites, this was one of my favorites, the Bloodline novel about Leia.
That's on my list.
Loved this.
Yeah, that's on my list.
Is that new canon?
Claudia Gray in general is one of my favorites. Yeah, it is.
That's what I've heard. Didn't you write Lost Stars too?
Yep, that's the next one I was going to show. But yeah, this one, what I love about the Del Rey books is that they give you the timeline for all, and it depends on how new or when the novel was published, but it gives you the timeline of where it falls in the canon. So you have the films as like the major markers, and then it shows you other new canon books that Del Rey has published and where they fall. So I appreciate that, because I'm like, where the hell, when is it, what's happening? So yeah, this particular book happens, I believe, where does it happen?
I gotta go let the dog.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, it happens like, yep, there it is, Bloodline. It happens before Force Awakens, and it basically is how people find out that she's connected to Darth Vader.
Oh, cool.
Pretty amazing.
Wow. That's really interesting. Yeah, I would like to dive into some of the... Sorry, go ahead. Stupid internet delay.
Oh, it's okay.
It's so annoying.
It's okay. But no, it goes into basically how she becomes general. Like how her transition from being a part of the Senate to being the general that we see in Force Awakens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I care about the characters, it makes me like really want to know everything that actually happened to them. And now that we have these books that are canon, like these things happen to these characters. So whatever happened in the Ahsoka book happened to her before we saw her in Mandalorian. And then moving forward, if there's any information about her, like how she got her white lightsabers and all that can be had, I want that information. But I also don't want to read boring books, like I don't want to read a book that feels like a journal, as Adam is saying, more than an exciting series of events. But yeah, it should just, we should just compile a list of recommended reading. We should start a book club.
Yeah, the timeline. Well, I mean, it's really helpful. Like, I think I'm going to read Dark Disciple next instead of Thrawn, because this one takes place after Solo, the movie. Yeah. Yeah. No, I would love to talk about the books more.
I'm just like,
I mean, we were all at.
What?
It's so hard to tell who's talking.
Pandemic, we were all kind of watching.
Sorry, B, you cut out a little bit. What'd you say?
Oh, it's okay. I just, as far as like on the idea of starting a book club, I mean, we were trying to watch Rebels at the same time before the pandemic happened. That's what we were doing. We were all kind of, I was rewatching it, and we were watching it in, as much as we could together, and then talking about each season. So in that similar vein, we could pick a book, to go through and talk about together, or just all of us pick our own book and then talk about the book that we've chosen.
Sure.
But yeah, I also recommend Lost Stars. That's the only other. I'm just one of my favorites because I have purchased many new canon books, many, but I really loved this one.
Yeah, Sam.
Again, Claudia Gray. I know my authors.
Sam says if you had to recommend one book to get someone started on the Star Wars novels, what would it be? And let's make it new canon. What is the one new canon novel that you think is the best place to start? And Adam, I know you've read a bunch too, so feel free to chime in.
Well, if you haven't really read any of the new canon books, I don't know. This is actually the first one I started with. I started with Lost Stars. That was the first one I read, and then I read the novelization of Force Awakens. As we were getting ready, like after the movie came out, which I also have. And then there was another book, because I was kind of like all up in everything about 7 because it was just so exciting. It's like, I want to grab anything to do with Rey and Poe and, Finn. I wanted everything to do with them. So I got this book, which is supposed to be like backstory in all 3 of them. Before the Awakening is what it's called. It's not bad. It's not super exciting, but it gives you kind of a nice overview of their a little bit of what happens before 7 to kind of like help you engage with these characters, I think, a little bit more.
Okay.
That's kind of how I stepped into it, but I did start off with this. The Lost Stars book happens right after Revenge of the Sith. So it's like, and it shows kind of what the perspective is for those worlds that have nothing to do with the main story and know nothing about what the Empire is going to be like.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like celebrations, like the war is over, and it's like all this propaganda about how amazing the Empire is going to be, and what can you do to serve the Empire? And it starts off as this very optimistic, like all these worlds celebrating the end of the war and kind of really envisioning this bright future that the Empire is painting for them, which is so interesting because the author very intentionally throughout this thick novel gives you pinpointed big events that happen in the main story that affect the characters that are not part of the Skywalker story. So it like people who aren't a part of that main story are still affected by the choices of those like in the main storyline, which I thought was really, really cool. And there's 2 protagonists, and you kind of see as they grow up, these characters, you meet them as children and they end to full adult. And it does end on Jakku, which I thought was really cool. I was like, because you see all these like ships that crash on Jakku, and one of the major Star Destroyers that falls like crashes on Jakku is in this book. So it's just like, oh my gosh, this made me real excited. But
I
anyway,
love that. That's great. God, how iconic was that shot of that Star Destroyer on Jakku when that first trailer for Force Awakens came out, and we all just like wet our pants. Ugh, it's so iconic. I remember I was sitting at my desk at work and I just couldn't wait, and I watched that trailer and I was just like, oh.
I remember being at the rendezvous when I first saw The Force Awakens, and I just remember, it fades to black and then you just hear Chewie, we're home. And I was at rendezvous just like holding onto the bars, like jumping up and down, like freaking out.
Yeah. Adam has some good recommendations. He says Thrawn is great, the novel Thrawn.
Yeah, I've read.
I'm excited.
Heir to the Jedi is great for Luke info. Has anyone else read Heir to the Jedi?
No.
Bee's read it. What do you think?
That's on my list. That's one of the ones I haven't read yet.
Oh, okay. Master and
I do Lords of the Sith.
Master and Apprentice for Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Was Thrawn in that book? Because I might have read that. I read one book that was like prequel canon, and that might have been it. I remember enjoying it. That was back in the days when I was still so pissed about the prequels that I couldn't enjoy anything that took place in the prequel world. Because to me, it was like the world of the prequels and the world of the original trilogy were like completely disparate, and they didn't connect at all, and that made me mad. But Dave Filoni has like bridged that gap, so now now it feels like one universe to me. I feel like he showed me what George Lucas' intention was, and I understand it now, and I like it. You know, I like the intention of saying, like, this is the High Republic era. Everything is different, and it was all destroyed by the villain of your favorite movies. And let's see how that happened. And, like, that's cool. You know, I dig that. I really like that. Joe, no, she's talking about a bar here in Seattle. Leia, Princess of Alderaan is good, but more young adults. Lords of the Sith is awesome to see Vader and the Emperor. That sounds interesting. Master and Apprentice is from 2019. Okay,
I have that book.
That's not the one I read then, Adam. I read a book with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, but Thrawn was in it. And I feel like it was new canon. Maybe this was before Disney canon, when it was like prequel stuff that was a part of Legends still. I think that's what it might have been. It was quite a while ago. So it might have been pre-Disney. So it might not even be canon anymore. So forget that book. We don't need it. Okay, Master and Apprentice. That sounds like another good one. That Lost Stars sounds like an interesting one to check out. Too many good things to look at.
Lost Stars take place? Because that one's not listed in my, at least in this Thrawn book, it's not listed in the timeline.
There were a few books right before 7 came out that were labeled Journey to Star Wars Force Awakens, and there's a couple books that like were intentionally written to give you some backstory before that movie came out. And I think it's a different publisher. I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's Del Rey, which is why it's not on that timeline. It specifically just says Disney and Lucasfilm Press. That's what it says.
Interesting. So it is still canon. It's just not in the Del Rey canon. But it is
exactly.
It is Disney canon.
A few different publishing houses.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Adam says, I haven't read Lost Stars or Bloodlines, but I need to right now. Yeah, they both sound really good. Oh, man, I still feel like there's stuff about the episode we didn't get to, but it's been over 2 hours, and I'm beat, so we better wrap this thing up. But we'll be back next Sunday to talk about episode 6, whatever that may be. I have no idea what's coming next. Like, well, we're going to the Jedi Temple, but we probably won't get there next week.
I was super curious because, like, they're name dropping Thrawn and all this, and then I'm thinking, like, they only have 3 more episodes left in the season.
I think they have 5. I heard that it's 10 episodes this season. I thought it was 8 as well, but someone else told me. I think B told me it was 10. 10 episodes total.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard there's only 3 episodes left, and I was like, I was actually getting a little nervous. I'm like, where are they even? Like, that made me think almost like name dropping Thrawn and stuff is just something they're trying to set up for like way down the line, but we're not actually going to get to, because I was like, if there's only 3 episodes left, I'm having a hard time seeing how that will. They're throwing a lot out there. Like, I almost felt like this episode was more like the Ahsoka show than the Mandalorian. Like, it brought in a lot of new, I don't know. Yeah. Should we do grades or do our
Let's do it.
The spear.
The spear. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Beskar spear. We did talk about that a bit earlier on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I actually, one little quick thing I wanted to, and this is something that someone mentioned on TikTok, that they were saying, like, someone was disappointed because Ahsoka was, like, at first, like, using the lightsabers the right way, not her famous, like, backwards kind of hilt thing that she does.
Yeah.
And then someone pointed out, though, and when I watched it again, when she's fighting the magistrate, right? The magistrate or something, and she's at first like fighting like, and then she does like a switch, and does the backwards, and you see her face kind of go like this, like she recognizes that move or something. Like it's almost like she recognizes the fighting style and is like, oh shit, like who am I dealing with or something. I don't know. I was just curious if that like all of a sudden she realized like, oh, this is Ahsoka Tano, like if she didn't know before her background or something clicked there, or if it was kind of like a moment. Someone also compared it to the Princess Bride when he's like, well, I got a surprise for you, I am not left-handed, you know, like they knock one out and she's like, anyways, I don't know. Yeah,
and that's a fair comparison. I think it was like she was toying with her until she realized that she had broken her defenses a little, and then she's like, okay, let's get real. Let's use my more comfortable grip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's rate this episode. B, how do you rate this one?
I really loved it. So I feel like, because I totally agree with you when you're like, I feel like the first episode really set the bar high. The first episode of season 2 set the bar high. So it's like, if I feel like this, or it's like, now I need to feel like this for it to warrant like a really good rating. I think, even though I really loved it, I'm going to give it a 9.5, only because there were certain things that I still feel like she should have had taller Montal. And I feel like, I don't know, that, because for me, that was just so distracting that they weren't tall. And then in all of the concept art afterwards, they were tall. I'm like, y'all know what you did. You're showing us that she should have looked like this. I don't know if that's why I'm kind of debating, because I feel like besides that, I would give it a 10. But for me, that was just such a distraction. It makes me want to give it a 9.5. Do you think that's legit? Do you think that's a good reason to
Sure. Why not? Well, because it's, some people might think it's a nitpicky thing, but the way that those like Leku grow and kind of frame her face is beautiful, And when she gets older and they get longer, it's really beautiful. And it did feel like a bit of a missed opportunity to have these things sort of like framing her face the way that they did in Rebels, maybe even more so, like looking at Shakti, hers got like really long. So it's a stylistic choice that I think a lot of people don't prefer. And I think that that's legit. For sure. Yeah. You're sad. Dio's sad. Dio's sad they removed Jean Guy. I'm bummed about this too. In episode 4, there was a crew member in the background that people saw, and like it was a mistake, and they digitally removed him. And I feel like, leave your mistakes in, man. They're like something to look for, Like that stormtrooper who whacks his head when he walks into the room in episode 4. It's classic.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like part of the movie now. Like I look for it every time, and I'm like, yeah, I think they should have left it. I mean, I didn't even notice it the first time, but I think I wish they hadn't edited that out.
Yeah. Jenny, what's your rating?
I mean, I think I'm gonna give it a 10, because I loved it, and maybe it's because I don't have such a long like Ahsoka is new to me. Like I just watched all this stuff, so I totally understand that being and it is a little bit, but it didn't, for me, it just didn't really affect me that much. Because I don't know, I guess I'm new to getting to know her. So yeah, I would give it a 10 out of 10. I loved it, and I'm so excited because I'm not meaning to do this as like a plug, but the visuals of like with the moon and the trees and stuff, I was like, I'm so gonna do like a candle holder with Ahsoka and baby Gorgru, like an art with like the trees and stuff. Like the whole visuals of it is just like I just love it.
Yes,
I loved everything.
I'm getting an ET candle thanks to Adam G, and I can't wait. I'm very excited.
I know, I'm working on it right now.
Oh, you are? Oh, cool.
Did Adam get his candle? Is he still in the chat?
He's still here, yeah. Yeah, Adam, let us know. Let us know if you got it. And Jenny, remind us where we go. Jenny Marie K Studio or something?
It's Jenny, JENNIE Marie Studio.
Jenny Marie Studio.
Yeah, I wasn't really trying to do a plug. I got a good one last week, but I really did. I don't know. I love that shot with the moon. Like I just got really excited about it because I was like, oh, this is like I get to do it. I'm going to do another Star Wars one. So I just love the imagery in it, and yeah, I'd give it a 10 out of 10.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely plug it. Adam says it's coming tomorrow, Jenny.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I talked earlier about some of the things that I felt that I was missing in this episode. And also, like, I was a little distracted by some of the logistics. Like, does Ahsoka have a ship? Does she just live in the woods? Like, what is her situation? I was distracted by some of the logistics of this episode. And it brought up a lot of questions that I'm really excited to have answered. But it was like opening this mystery box. And I at the same time giving us some backstory to Grogu, which was really satisfying. Like, I really, really liked this episode a lot, but it did not have any joy in it. And my favorite thing about Star Wars is when it makes me feel extreme joy. When Mando flies out of the mouth of a crate dragon and it explodes, I feel joy. And when when
the barfing dragon.
Yeah. Oh man. It was amazing. And like when Bo-Katan shows up and they like blow shit up, I feel joy. And this didn't have those moments. But it had a lot of like really compelling lore in it, great story, great performances. It made me want a lot more Ahsoka. I want to see enough Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka to see her develop the character and maybe bring in some of that joy and cockiness that the younger version has. I'd love to see some of that in the older version. But yeah, as a whole, I watched it twice. As a whole, the episode doesn't have the emotional highs that other episodes do have. So for me, this one was like a 7, which is like very solid score, really good episode, but it didn't like give me that emotional catharsis that I think a lot of other people got from it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I still think episode 3 has been my favorite so far. Episode 3 with Bo-Katan. I think that one I would almost put that a smidgen higher than this, and that was my favorite by far. So, but
thank you, Adam. Jenny, we now have a command for you in chat, so we can plug for you next time. Yeah, I think that's still my second favorite. The premiere was like, I love Tatooine. I love desert Star Wars. I really, really, really liked Cobb Vanth. I thought that character had so much spark to it and so much life to him that I associate with Star Wars, like that kind of like Han Solo swag that he had going on. I really dug it. But yeah, episode 4 was incredible. That was episode 3 was the Bo-Katan episode, right?
Yeah. That one's my favorite. Yeah,
that's my second favorite of the season for sure. That episode has a little bit of everything. It's absolutely fantastic. The only episode I haven't liked was episode 2. Like the side quest to the planet of the spiders was not my favorite, but overall, like this season of Mandalorian is really delivering and I love it. It just like feels like top tier, high level Star Wars content. And the fact that we're getting that every week is a dream come true. And I love it.
Can I mention one other random thing?
Yeah.
That I noticed in this episode? It's not that important, but the magistrate, her wig looked like a wig to me, and I was very distracted by that.
Me too. I could see like her lace.
I was like, that is not where your hairline is, honey. Like, why did they not get you a better wig? When they tried to do the whole Rey, like I could see that they're trying to establish that Rey hairstyle is more common in the galaxy because the little girl in the school had it in episode 4. One of the little girls, students in the school, had that hairdo, and then this evil magistrate had the same hairdo. But I was like, girl, that's not your hair.
Yeah.
I wish they would. If you had a wig, why? Why can't we get you some good wig? Y'all can't afford it, but like just the strip, like you could see it looked like hair plugs almost, like in her form. I'm like, that don't look right. Like,
I noticed that too. Yeah, there was a few technical things in this episode that stood out to me. Like there was a couple times where I could see the screen, which I normally can't on this show, where I could tell where the line was between the on-set ground and the screen. I felt like it was a little more obvious in this episode in the forest in a few places. That wig, and then feeling like I was seeing face replacement on Ahsoka's stunt double. I might be wrong about that, but they really looked to me like they, use like digital technology to replace the stunt double's face to make it look like it was Rosario. So
yeah, I'll have to watch again and pay attention because I didn't notice that at all. But
that's not something.
I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah, did you notice that, Adam? So far, I'm the only one who thinks that that's a thing. I could absolutely be wrong. I'll tell you that I watched it once on my TV and once on. We have a projector in our bedroom, so you can like lie in bed and watch TV on the ceiling. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. And it's only like $200. They're definitely worth it. When I watched it there, I couldn't tell at all. But when I watched it on my TV, which is pretty sharp, I was definitely feeling like I was seeing some like weirdness in the face when on a couple of shots, especially in the very first scene, the first battle scene. But anyway, so there's some things that like took me out of the experience. And it's because I'm just like a picky viewer, you know. It's not, these aren't things that I want to feel, you know. I don't want to notice these things, but I'm not going to lie about it when I notice it. And like, thinking back to episode 1, you know, when they fight the Krayt Dragon and it goes from like 16:9 to 4:3 or whatever it is, where like the aspect ratio changes when you see the Krayt Dragon on screen, because it's so big they couldn't fit it into like the black bars. They had to like raise it out. And the production quality of that episode is unassailably good. It's like movie quality. So in this episode, to be able to see through the seams in a couple of places, just for me personally, was very distracting. Adam says you thought it was
lazy.
Yeah, I hope they don't get. I'm sure they won't. They're on a really tight budget, tight schedule. You know, the fact that they're doing what they're doing with what they have is incredible. And if they were to make an Ahsoka Tano TV show, they would have time to have Rosario like train to do more of the physicality of the lightsaber battling. But like on a TV budget and schedule, for a one-off episode, they probably didn't do that. They'd use the stunt double for a lot of it. So, yeah, so I think that'd be great. Hey, Sean, great to see you, my friend. Have a good night. Yeah, we all got to get out of here. I'm exhausted. I got to get some sleep. I'm going to stream some Mario tomorrow over on my gaming channel. Yeah, but this was by far our longest episode yet. We had so much to talk about, and we didn't even get to all of it, I think. I don't remember what we forgot because I'm too tired at this point. But B, thank you so much for being here. Jenny, thank you so much. It's so fun hanging out with both of you. Thank you so much to everyone in chat who was here to hang out. Come see me tomorrow on my gaming channel, play some Mario. Come see us next Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be back to talk about episode 6. I love doing this every week. It's so much fun. Thank you guys so much.